if struck by a chill or a vision of ancient grace. And he gazed with a stare at my nut-brown hair till the blood rushed to his face. From Bantry Bay up to Derry Quay, and from Galway to Dublin town, no lad I've seen has a look so keen as I saw here in County Down. As he tripped o'er his feet, for a lad so bold, he was knocked from his hold by a girl that he chanced to meet. From Bantry Bay up to Derry Quay, and from Galway to Dublin town, no lad I've met hasn't a name to set 'gainst the star of the County Down. To find my humble cot, well, let him come and let him drum his fingers on the door. If he's half the wit as he's got the grit, I might like him a wee bit more. From Bantry Bay up to Derry Quay, and from Galway to Dublin town, ne'er a lad I've sought has a heart so caught by the star. Snow on the heather, smoke from the roofs. I stand on the ridgeline, breathing the proof. Sky like a pale bowl, frost in my hair, name on my tongue tip, thin in the air. I call across the pines, he's yellow, high and wild and wide. If you're lost, then follow the sound reads them in song. Far in the darkness, something replies, echo or answer, tears in my eyes. Ooh, where are you now? I won't fall silent. Call across the pines, he's yellow. High, wild and wide. If you're lost, then follow the sound. Let it guide you through the night. Come home. Come home. The fire smokes black when she walks through the door. A shadow that stretches across the stone floor. She carries the staff, she carries the sight, a piece of the morning in the heart of the night. Satan, 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 Satan.
The staff hits the wood where the kings used to stand. Fate is a needle in a trembling hand. You asked for the rune, you asked for the flame, but you're too weak to carry the weight of your name.
Allah, the thread is unweaving. Allah, the truth is bereaving. The vulva is spinning, the spirit and bone. The seeds of your ending have already been sown. She sees the high hall, she sees it in ash, the glint of the gold, the sting of the lash. She speaks to the dead, she drinks from the well. There are secrets the living are too frightened to tell. The thread is unweaving. The truth is bereaving. Vulva is spinning, the spirit and bone. The seeds of your ending have already been sown. Across the foam where the gray sea dies, I see the gold in your mortal eyes. Leave the iron, Hashin, leave the rust, leave the men who turn to dust.
I see the light, I see the shore, but my heart is tied to the threshing floor. How can I ride where the shadows go, when the wind of home is all I know?
Tiananong is calling.
Beyond the mist where the sea is new,
Leave the world of the gray and the falling. Hashin, Harun, I am calling you. 10,000 winters in a single breath, the land of youth, the end of death. Time is a cage, time is a lie. Come to the land where we never die.
I took the saddle, I left the clay, but the ghost of home wouldn't fade away. 300 years passed like a sigh, while I watched the golden birds fly by.
Hashin, my love, stay on the horse.
I must see the hills, I must find my source.
If you touch the ground, the years will strike.
The world is changed, it is nothing alike. I touch the ground and the ground turned gray. My brothers are bones, they have blown away. My skin is a shroud, my heart is lead. I wake among the ancient dead.
The veil is thin, the light is long. We are the pulse, we are the song. You chose the shore, you left the tide. The mist has closed on the mortal side. Is a shroud on the sleeping glen. We lay out the brat for the healing of men. A silver shadow moves over the height. Breed carries embers to swallow the night. Her footsteps are soft as the falling of wool, while the moon o'er the she is heavy and full. In the cold of the clay, lead us from shadow and into the day, with the spark of the forge and the flow of the spring. Wake every winter-bound slumbering thing. The wheel is a-turning, the lights on the way.
Good and fair evening, my friends. Hello, hello, hello. So very good to see you all. Welcome back to another beautiful night in the tavern. Matty, hello. I think I owe Matty a toot on the raid horn, don't I? My desk is such a mess because I'm still cleaning the tavern. So everything in here is all messy. Alright, here we go. 3, 2, 1. I don't know the names of any of the music, Matty. They're from the ladies' playlist. That is a question for her. I have no idea what any of the songs are. They are... That's the ladies' playlist in her project. Let's see who's all in very quickly. We've got Erin, we've got Frost, we've got Herring, we've got Zoe, we've got Matty, we've got Bear, we have Destiny, we have Zoe, we have... I think I saw Tyson in as well. We've got Teresa, we've got Quirt, we've got Sawtalk. Huzzah, huzzah, huzzah. Welcome in, my friends. Oh, and the Emeralds lady is in. Jody, hello, welcome. Good to see you all. Grab your seats and settle in. The littlest says hello. He should be sleeping. Well, hello, littlest. Good to see you. You can now go to sleep. Listen to your mom. Behave for her as best you can. And then let's see, we have... Taylor McKinnon over on the YouTube portal. Welcome in, Taylor. First time getting to join. Well, welcome. We're very glad to have you. Tonight is our grown-up night. So for any of you who have never been in before, we have 2 nights where I do story time for you all. The first night is on Tuesday, where we read something a little bit more family-friendly. That book for right now is Eragon. This is Thursday, which is the adult night, which means this can be a little bit more intense, but generally... not terribly vulgar, but a little bit more intense, a little bit more adult, and it is Prince of the Blood by Raymond E. Feist. Petra, hello, hello, good to see you, welcome in. And then we have George, Tom, Teresa, Wiz, Mark, thank you for the stars, my friend. Tips of the Tavern Keeper, always appreciated. Thank you kindly. Sarah, hello, hello, welcome in. So very glad that you could join us. Now, for anyone who's new, because I do see some new names, how these story times go is I will read to you from the story. We'll pop up usually about every 15 to 20 minutes or so. We'll have a little bit of discussion about what's going on in the story. And then I'll answer any questions, and sometimes we'll go off on the tangents. But in general, we don't really stay on topic for too terribly long. But it's all in the name of the good fun. So I am sure you will all enjoy yourselves, and we will enjoy having you here with us today. And thank you all for joining us. It means the world. I look forward to seeing you all become regular faces here in the tavern. So grab your seats, settle in, friends. And we're going to begin here in just a moment. Let me make sure I've greeted everyone. Mobile looks so different, I just like it. Change, no change. Crow, hello! Don't know how long I'll be able to stay. We're fixing a boat, but I just wanted to say howdy. Well, hello, Crow. Fixing a boat, that sounds like fun. And a sail out onto the open seas. Also, Castle, my mom has a horrible taste in pizza. I guess, is it Hawaiian? It's not surprising. Hawaiian pizza was created by Canadians, so it only makes sense that Canadians would like it, Matty. Why they had to thrust that suffering on the rest of us, who knows? Sometimes we go off on... Yes, sometimes, Bear. Sometimes we go off on tangents. Aaron buys a round with a tavern for a fired co-worker. Alright, we'll raise a glass to Aaron's fired co-worker. Twitch mobile is awful, and it's been years and years. Yeah, I mean, Twitch is just in general like I love Twitch, I love TikTok, but they don't make good aesthetic decisions for their platforms. It's just how it is. Just finished painting some of the walls. Only a small portion of left in the living room. Well, that's good fun. It doesn't help. It's my tablet, and I greatly dislike typing on it. I got a pigeon peck. Oh, I see. I see. That is very funny, though. That is very funny. Tom is watching from Winnipeg, Canada. We got a lot of hosers and Canucks who join us here in the tavern. And George, hello, it's good to see you. Mary Beth, hello, it's good to see you. All right. Valkyrie. Sending around a spirit and cheer. Good to have and keep up. Appreciate you, Taylor. We'll raise a glass to that. Taylor sending spirit and good cheer to all around. Sláinte, my friends. Waffling is quite fun, isn't it? It's half of everything I do here. If it weren't for waffles, I'd be out of a job. I'm going to switch to YouTube. Twitch is already being twitchy. I've had a few Twitch friends who have said that they've been having problems with Twitch. It might be on my end. Everything looks stable, but yeah, just watch from whatever portal is most comfortable for you guys. There's nothing... Hey, there's nothing wrong with a good Canadian tuxedo either. Hear me out here, I've only ever put applesauce and cinnamon on waffles. That only ever is crazy. Applesauce isn't terribly crazy, and cinnamon's not terribly crazy, because applesauce is... It's really just sort of like a fruit compote, right? So that's not unusual. I don't see it unusual as putting that as a topping on waffles. Only ever having put that on waffles is something of another question. So Frost, I've said this before, and I'm not a doctor, so don't take any medical advice from me. I get sinus infections too, and ear infections, and what I find is that if I clear up the ear infection, the sinus infections go away. And how I do it is I will put hydrogen peroxide in my ear, leave it there for like 60 to 90 seconds, take it, clean it out, and then do the other one. And usually within like a day or two, my sinuses clear up. Now, and again, I'm not a doctor, so don't take my advice on anything, but that always works for me. I just don't like maple syrup. I'm not a huge fan of syrups in general. Like, I don't like cloyingly sweet things. The sweetest thing I will have is like soda. But if it's any kind of even ice cream, like there are some ice creams that are just too sweet for me, and I don't enjoy them. I have blueberry jam on my... That is abominable, Matty. Apologize to everyone. Peanut butter and maple syrup are my favorite combo for pancakes. Yeah, I mean, I'll eat peanut butter on almost anything. You have a hard time keeping peanut butter off of things for me. Ice cream on waffles is a classic. You are first in, Wesley. Hello, good to see you. Welcome in. It would taste like spice. Yeah, I think so, Bear. I think so. Choke cherry syrup is great, though. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. Quote. We've had a rash of sinus issues also. I was afraid my daughter had an ear infection about 2 days ago, but it cleared up, thankfully. Thank you, Bear. I appreciate you. Yeah, well, no, I know, Frost. Even if I just have a sinus infection, if I put peroxide in my ears, it clears up. Because your sinus cavity and your nasal cavity and your ear cavities are like not directly connected, but there's like a tenuous connection in there. I guess. I'm not a doctor. Don't listen to anything I have to say. But it literally always works. There's never been a time when it hasn't worked. Choke cherries are wild and quite bitter, but that's a plus in my book. Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's like golden apples from Ireland. Like they're these little golden apples, and if you get them really late in the season, they're very sweet. Your ears, nose, and throat are all connected by the sinus cavity, so it makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know exactly how connected they are. But I do know that your sinuses do have a tenuous connection to the back there. I'm sick as well. I never get sick. I hope it doesn't. Yeah, pneumonia is the worst. Because make sure you're taking care of yourself. Plenty of fluids. Make sure you're keeping it dry. That's why the docs specialize in ear and nose are called ENTs. Oh, well, that makes sense. See, I never go to the doctor either. Every time I go to the doctor, he just wants to give me medicine for things I don't have. So I don't go to the doctor all that often. I am back to haunt everyone. Welcome back, So Talk. It's a small black cherry that grows on trees with red leaves. Oh, interesting. Interesting. I just take normal topical peroxide, hydrogen peroxide, just like the kind you can get at the pharmacy, the over-the-counter one. And I put it in my ear. I leave it in for 60 seconds to 90 seconds, let it bubble up, and then I tilt my head out, and then dry my ear off, and it always works for me. Destiny is in Wesley. She is over on the Twitch portal though, because she's driving. Well, she's not driving, but she's on mobile for the moment. I have to go annually for my audiology tests. Yeah, I'm supposed to go for a bunch of things, but I just don't. All right, friends, we are going to do our ads real quick for our Twitch friends. It is Wesley Says Hello, Destiny, from over on the TikTok portal. We're going to do 3 minutes of ads, and that'll give you an hour without them, and then we're going to get started with story time. So, you guys are going to be in ad hell for about 3 minutes if you don't have a Prime, if you don't have a sub or a turbo, but we'll be right back. I'm not gonna do any stories until you all get back. So we will be. My bosses yell at me if I don't make my appointments, but it's fair enough. You're also government property, as they would say. Government likes to protect its investments, so you don't have as much of a choice as some folks do. I'm barely over here with the way this thing works. Well, Wesley says hello. Don't remind me now. Destiny says hello back, Wesley. Did we leave off in the middle of a chapter? No, we did not. Okay, so for those of you who are not caught up, we are in Prince of the Blood. This is by Raymond E. Feist, and he's the same guy that wrote the Magician series that we were reading before, the Rift War Saga. Molly Sue, hello, good to see you, welcome in. This is a much more intense and dark even than Silverthorn and the Darkness at Sethinon. This is a very intense story. She is doing well. John, you gonna ever read the Game of Thrones novellas with Duncan Egg? I don't know. I don't particularly enjoy Martin's writing. He's got a very cyclical way of writing, and it's just so predictable for me. I bought, because I never read Game of Thrones until the show came out, and so when the show came out, I was like, oh well, I'll read the books because I didn't really care for the show. I thought the show was really pretty. I thought that the show was really well made, but I didn't particularly care for the story or any of that. So I got the books. I started reading the books, and the first one was decent. I would have rated it a 6, maybe a 7 out of 10. And then I read the second one, and the second one wasn't as good. And I'm like, why is this? It feels so predictable. Why does it feel so predictable? Then halfway through the third one, I realized that he writes in the exact same pattern over and over and over and over again. So if X thing happens, then Y thing is going to happen. If X thing happens, then Y thing is going to happen. So it became so predictable that I knew what was going to happen before it happened, and I just got very bored with it. So I don't enjoy Martin's writing. But a lot of people have said that they like the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. John, hello. Yeah, we couldn't make it on yesterday. I had some commitments that needed to be committed to, but I'm making it up this fine evening. We're going to start here in just a moment. I am quite well. Yeah, we had to cancel yesterday because of other things, but I'm going to give you guys a full story time tonight, and we are on Prince of the Blood by Raymond E. Feist again. So we're going to still adult story time tonight. I like his writing, but the Dunk and Egg, I think, are great for these toned down on themes. Might need to be that way because all the stuff going on, not sure. Yeah, and it's not to say that his writing is necessarily bad. It's just not for me. Like, there are tons of people who love Martin. It's just not the kind of storytelling that I enjoy. Hedge Knight miniseries is the best thing they've done so far. It's so quirky, just enjoyable. I really appreciate seeing your reels on Facebook every day. The one on the Banshee was interesting. Well, I'm glad you liked it, Taylor. Surprised, I'm getting a lot of weird messages from that one, but I like it. One of the things that really bothers me about the way that, and it's not necessarily like bothering, like I don't get actively upset about it, but you don't often see in media proper representations of banshees, and to me, that is a damn shame because the actual story of banshees is very interesting, and I like it, and I grew up with those stories with my grandfather, and the fact that I've never really seen them told in any sort of popular media it hurts my soul a little bit. Kayla, you said, turns out I needed an oil change and they took fluid out of my spine. Well, that's a hell of a way to start any conversation, but I hope your oil change went well and you're not too sore. Draining fluid out of the spine can be rough. But Taylor, I'm glad that you enjoy your visits to the tavern. It means the world to me. By the way, everyone, if you're on the Facebook or YouTube portal, you're going to be about 15 to 90 seconds behind everybody else. There's nothing I can do about that. It is a latency thing that goes on with the platforms. There's nothing I can really do about it. It's not a big deal for me. I don't mind like reading backwards and catching up with everyone per platform, but if it's irritating for you, the fastest platform for talking is over on Twitch. I think that's probably because there's so many variations of the Banshee across cultures. Thank you, Frost. I appreciate you, brother. There are to a degree. So the Banshee as a concept is pretty much what it is unilaterally, right? Across all the cultures that have the concept of the Banshee, it's all the way all the way across. Now there are other like vindictive female spirits in Celtic folklore. There are the washerwomen, and there's the Daradu, and there are a bunch of these figures, and I think a lot of them ended up getting conflated into the Banshee just because of I call it internet compression. The internet tends to compress things together. Clifford, hello my friend, good to see you. I want more stuff depicting early Irish America, maybe. Just going off your comment, there are a lot of actually really interesting early American Irish stories that are fascinating. I think I'm good now. We finally got out of the hospital after 3 days. Excellent. That's good to hear. Butterbeer and a stiff shot. You'll have it. Darth Nexus, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome in, grab your seat, settle in. I had amazing notice at school. Oh, Darby O'Gill grew up with that and The Quiet Man. Yeah, I've never seen the Darby O'Gill movies, believe it or not. And somebody told me that there was a representation of the Banshee in Darby O'Gill, so I'll have to watch that. Wronged woman equals Banshee, woman in white, obviously. Right. Which is generally how the internet tends to compress things. It's like, there are a lot of stuff. Interestingly enough, your namesake, like the Valkyrie, is one of those things that gets like hyper compressed by the internet. And I've had arguments with scholars where the scholars will argue with me about the Valkyries being warrior women, and I say yes, they're certainly depicted as warrior women. They're dressed as warrior women, but we have no stories about Valkyries being in any sort of battle. The idea is that they are spirits of valor, they are spirits of honor, they are spirits of bravery, not necessarily that they ever performed any sort of action in battle. And that's an important nuance that really ends up getting lost in like the hubbub of all of these different ideas that sort of get pushed together into one. The most prominent story we have around Valkyries is them being cupbearers in Valhalla, which means it's their job to welcome in and greet those warriors who come to Valhalla. The closest thing we have to them being involved in a battle is when they take the soul of Hakon the Great, and they actually make fun of him for being upset that he died. And then there are stories. Yeah, and God of War like hyperinflated that perception, which was. I've had so many people argue with me about that. So, Ancient Magus's Bride shows the Banshee in the show, and I feel it's I say this whenever somebody brings up the Ancient Magus Bride. The Ancient Magus's Bride is one of the best, most honorable depictions of Celtic and European folklore I have ever seen in media. It's not perfect, but it is the best one that I have ever seen. I don't know who wrote Ancient Magus's Bride, but it is a monumental piece of work. At least the first couple. I haven't seen the recent seasons, but the original seasons, the first like 2 seasons with Chie and the Magus. I can't remember his name. Are spectacular. They're absolutely wonderful. Yeah, Kayla, it's so good. It's absolutely spectacular. Right, that they choose warriors for Odin, and then there's the variation of the female spirit who's harmed their children in some way. Those have been conflated into banshees and stuff. Yeah, I actually had somebody ask me if La Llorona from Mexico was the same thing as a banshee, and I haven't had a chance to respond to them. But it is in this age of fast media, so much gets compressed together, and the lady and I have committed to. We are going to keep our stories slow as they're supposed to be. Frost, I missed your toast there, my friend. I apologize, I got caught up going back and forth. Frost buys around for the tavern, says, may the tavern family have blessed health. I'll drink to that. Sláinte. I love the scene with the crystals. It made me want to ride fantasy. The Ancient Magus's Bride is a masterclass in fantasy. Like, it is so incredibly good. Like, it's got equal parts of like that whimsy and the day-to-day sort of things, like everyday magic, and then it also has like the big dire sort of things. It's so good. I can't get you a kitty cat right now, Matty, but when the lady comes out, I'll make sure she brings them. Because the cats are currently in the back, and Milo is being a stealth pooper, so it is really interesting to see how many different varieties of folklore you cover. I very much would like to tell stories from all over the world, Taylor. My family collects stories from all. Waffles be rolling. Yeah, they are, bros. Yeah, they are. I'll make sure you get a kitty cat though. My family has collected stories from all over the world, and I personally have studied and kept stories from all over the world, and I love the stories that we have, and I do wish that there was more out there that honored those stories and folklore. I see. Either way it works. Honestly, I feel like it's perfect. It's magic in plain sight. Yeah, the only other story I've seen that gets close to that is Sugar Apple Fairy Tale, and it's not. It doesn't even come close to Ancient Magus's Bride, but it is one of the better like magic in plain sight sort of stories, and it did a really good job. I love the music of Ancient Magus. The soundtrack, the whole soundtrack, not just the music, but the whole sound design of Ancient Magus's Bride is good. Okay, someday maybe we'll do like a watch party for Ancient Magus's Bride, because it is just spectacular. It's a lot of people crap on Frieren Beyond Journey's End, and we've watched some episodes together in the tavern. But Frieren is another one where it's like there are some big moments, but most of it is like everyday sort of simple magic. And whimsy about the world and exploring human nature and whatnot, and I adore that. I adore those kinds of stories, and I don't think we get enough of the simple, everyday sort of magic. I will forever glaze Frieren is such a beautiful story. It is like the last two episodes of the season are about her helping to finish a bridge and helping an old man taste the liquor he's wanted to taste for like hundreds of years. And it's so sublime. And people get upset. They're like, oh, it's so boring, it's so slow. Well, I'm sorry it's not Coco Melon, okay? I'm sorry that not everything can be Coco Melon, alright? But yeah, I don't know. All right. I'm gonna stop. Let's get into story time, my friends. Nitso, hello, my friend. 7 stream streak. Thank you kindly for it. Herring, thank you for 5. Had to step away. Did I miss my rant? You very well might have. Okay. All right. So when we last left off, the second prince had been kidnapped, and now he was in a slave market. He escaped the slave market, and is now with another beggar boy, who is helping him to survive. And they learned that the governor of this city of thieves and slaves is on the payroll in some way, trying to see that the prince is killed. So we have to assume then that this goes all the way up to somewhere in the royalty of Great Kesh, which is where they're headed. So this next chapter is called Welcome, so we assume we're going to be back with Jimmy and the other brother, and we're going to see where it goes. John sometimes provides 10 out of 10 rounds worth of popcorn. I was gonna say I try my damnedest, but I don't. It's just what comes out of me. We were ranting and raving there for a minute. I'll give you another one here in a bit, Herring, if you're still around. We were just ranting about how good Ancient Magus's Bride and Frieren are, and how people just don't. There are a bunch of people who call Frieren boring, and there are a bunch of people who say that Ancient Magus's Bride is boring. And people's brains are so used to being stimulated, this like short form content era. It's so tragic to me. Because you miss out on so many of the important, beautiful details of things. Because you're constantly in a hurry. And in a hurry to do what? Like, I don't know. I don't know. Alright, I'm just gonna read. I'm making myself sad. I love a good rant. Boring rants lose me though. I don't know if we've ever had a boring rant. I mean, I probably get a little bit dull in the back end of some of these. Because I'll go on for a bit. I'll be back in a bit, going to try and cool off with a shower. Alright, Frost, just make sure you're taking care of yourself, brother. Been looking for a bit, playing some abiotic factor with a friend. Oh, interesting. That mindset makes it harder to get into books like Magician as well. Yeah. Well, there are a lot of folk. I had somebody drop into my DMs a few months ago who said that they'd never read Lord of the Rings because it was too boring. They were like nothing happens. And I don't ever like to like talk down to people who message me, but it's also really hard for me to have a conversation with somebody who doesn't understand the kind of media that we make, right? Sorry guys, I had to disappear for a bit. Rabbit's saying, and I don't get to talk to her. Rabbit's rang, and I don't get to talk to her as much as I like. No, it's all right, Bear. You don't got to apologize for that. Oh, you know what? That's a good point. Thank you, Mary Beth. I appreciate that. I forgot to turn it down when I came in. Thank you for that. That might explain why people were dropping off. People spend too much time wanting to lose themselves in the next thing to enjoy. It's true. If Castle ever has a boring rant, it'll be the same day I become mute. Oh. Alright, let's get into the story, my friends. Yeah, and that's generally, so it's not even necessarily about, I want people to be able to enjoy stories, but there are some people who have grown up with the world moving so fast that they think it always has to be that fast. Like they're conditioned for it to be that fast. And so, how do you explain to somebody whose entire world... Santana, hello my friend, welcome in, it's good to see you. How do you explain that to somebody whose worldview is that everything has to be fast? That it's not only okay but healthy to slow down. Your thoughts and your actions and your time. Because while the human world moves very fast, and there are fast things about the world in general, time actually progresses quite slowly when you let it. Modern anime is often action slop, and then there's this slice of life anime I want to see. But yeah, there's more we could go into in that, but I'm gonna get reading. Much as I love my mom, I don't like being this far away from my wife and Bear Cub. I feel you, Bear. I feel you on that. I don't like being away from the lady either. Yeah, as much as I appreciate the convenience of modernity, I prefer a slower life. I prefer things to be not so fast. Can't stay much longer on account of my bedtime, but keep a place for me good, Tavern Keeper, Slancher. I will, Taylor. I'll start reading here in a second. I apologize, we get off on a bit of a ramble. I hope you rest well, and I hope you rise tomorrow ready to face the day. John will never read. I know. This is a topic that's very important to me. Like, it's not even important because I want the tavern to be successful. It's important because stories need time to breathe, and if we don't let those stories breathe, they die. And we see this all the time with the Disneyfication of stories and the TikTokification of storytelling. We It's not to say that there aren't good things about those things. I'm not one of these doom and gloom guys who's like, oh, everything I dislike is doom and gloom. But if everything is fast all the time, that's not healthy and that's not life. Yeah, like I like to be busy. I like for there to be things to do. The lady and I make a crap ton of stories, and that's, it's not necessarily fast paced, but it is hectic. Jessica, hello, good to see you. Welcome in. I could stand for a slowdown, it's just everything all the time. Yeah. And that's why I try to make the tavern that. Like, I'd like for everything to be in here very slow and deliberate, because I can't stand things being so fast all the time. You lose the detail when your whole life is in motion blur. Alright, let's begin. Chapter 9. Welcome. Sorry, the TikTok is being temperamental. Give me just a second. Chapter 9. Welcome. The trumpet sounded. 1,000 soldiers came to attention and presented arms. 100 drummers on horsebacks began a rhythmic tattoo. Erlon turned to James, who rode to his left, and said, "This is unbelievable." Before them stood the imperial city of Kesh. They had entered the lower city an hour earlier, to be met with a delegation from the city governor and his retinue. It was the same ceremony they'd been forced to endure at each stop along the wearisome journey from Nariab to the capital. When the governor of Nariab had met them at the outskirts of town, Erlon found the welcome a relief from his black mood. He had been numb with Boric's death for nearly a week, giving himself over to dark bouts of depression, interspersed with rage at the unfairness of it all. The pageantry of the governor's welcome had taken his mind off the ambush for the first time, and the novelty of seeing such a display had kept him diverted for over 3 hours. But now the displays wore upon his patience. He had received another extravagant welcome in the cities of Karamat and Katara, and a half-dozen others welcomes that might have been smaller in scale, but were just as formal and tedious at the smaller towns along the way. From any official, from regional governor down to the town alderman, Erlon had been forced to endure welcoming speeches from them all. Erlon glanced behind where Locklear rode with the Keshian official, sent to meet them at the lower city gates. The prince signaled, and both men set heels to their mounts, trotting them to where Erlon rode. The official was one Kafi Abu Harez, a noble of the Beni Wazir, one of the desert people of the Yolpur. Many desert men had come to the imperial service over the last 100 years, with a marked preference and talent for diplomacy and negotiations. Kesh's old ambassador to the Western Realm, Abdul Rahman Memoharaz Khan, deceased for 10 years now, had once told Erlon and his brother, "We are horse people, and as such, we are rigorous horse traders." Erlon had heard his father curse the man with grudging respect enough times to believe it so. He knew that whatever else this protocol officer might be, he was no man's fool, and he needed to be watched. The desert men of Yalpur were terrible enemies. Coffee said, "Yes, Your Highness, how may I serve you?" Erlon said, "It's a bit of a change from what we've been seeing. Who are these soldiers?" Coffee pulled his robe around him slightly as he rode. His outfit was similar to those Erlon had seen before in Krondor. Head-covering tunic, trousers, long vest, knee-high boots, and belt. But where his costume differed from those Erlon had seen before was in the intricate design sewn into the fabric. Keshian court officials seemed to display an almost unnatural affection for gold thread and pearls. "These are the Imperial Household Guards, Highness," Erlon casually said. "So many?" "Yes, Highness." "It looks like almost all the cities, like a full city garrison," observed Locklear. The Keshian said, "It would depend on the city, my lord. For a kingdom city, it is. For a Keshian city, not quite. For the city of Kesh, but a small part." "Would it be giving military secrets away to ask how many soldiers guard the Empress?" asked Erlon dryly. 10,000, answered Coffee. Erlon and Locklear exchanged glances. 10,000, said the prince. "The palace guard, which is a part of the household guard, which is but again a part of the city garrison. That is the heart of Kesh's army. Within the walls of the upper and lower cities, 10,000 soldiers stand ready to defend she who is Kesh. They turn their horses along the road lined by soldiers and curious citizens who stood and observed the passing Ironman in relative quiet. Erlon saw the road turn upward and climb an incline, a gigantic highway of stone that wound its way up to the top of the plateau. Halfway up the ramp, a gold and white banner flew, and Erlon took note. The uniform of the soldiers above and below changed. "These are different regiments, then?" he asked. Kafi said, "In ancient times, the original peoples of Kesh were but one of many nations of the Ovan Deep. When pressed by enemies, they fled to the plateau upon which the palace rests. It has become tradition that all who serve the empire, but who are not of Keshian stock, live in the city below the palace." He pointed up the ramp to where the banner flew. "All of the soldiers that you see here in Kesh are of Imperial garrison, but those above the Imperial banner are all soldiers of true blood. Only they may serve and live in the palace." There was a faint edge to his voice as he added, "No one who is not of the true Keshian blood may live within the palace." Erlon looked close, but there was nothing to indicate any feeling one way or the other in the protocol officer. He smiled as if to say it was a mere fact of Keshian life. As they neared the bottom of the ramp, Erlon also could see that those who stood guard along the route were much as he had seen throughout the Empire so far. Men of all races and of all appearances, more dark skins and hair colouring than in the kingdom, to be certain, but a few redheads and blonde citizens. But those above the banner were nearly uniform in appearance, dusky skin but not black, or dark brown hair nor fair. Hair uniformly black or dark brown, with an occasionally red cast to it, but no real redheads, blondes, or light browns in sight. It was clear that this company of soldiers came from the bloodlines with little intermixings of the other peoples of Kesh. Erlon studied the wall that ran along the edge of the plateau above, noticing that many spires and towers visible from where he rode. Considering the size of the plateau, he said, "So then all who live in the city above, but outside the palace, are also true blood." Kafi smiled indulgent. "There is no city atop the plateau, Your Highness. All you will see atop the plateau is the palace. Once there were other buildings atop the plateau, but as the palace grew and expanded over the centuries, they were displaced. Even the great temples were relocated below, so that those not of Keshian blood could worship." Erlon was impressed. Under the rulership of the Mad King Roderick, the city of Rillanon had been beautified to become the most splendid city in Mid-Kemia. Or that was Roderick's statement ambition. But Erlon was forced to admit that even had Roderick's plan come to fruition, even with the marble facings on all the public buildings, the gardens along the walk-paths throughout the city, the waterways around the palace, even with all of that, Rillanon was a poor thing next to the city of Kesh. It was not that Kesh was a lovely city. It wasn't. Many of the streets they had ridden were packed tight with dirty little things, thick with odor of life, cooking and the acrid smell of forge, pungent leather of tanners, and the ever-present stink of unwashed bodies and human waste. There was little that was lovely in the city of Kesh, but it was ancient. It held the echoes of centuries of history, a mighty nation rising to become a great empire. There was a culture that produced artists and musicians here when Erlon's own ancestors were fishermen who had just turned their hand to raiding their neighboring islands from their safe harbor at Rillanon. The point had been made to him by his history teacher as a child that now he could see exactly what his teacher had meant. The stones under his horse's hooves were worn with passage of raiders, captive chieftains, triumphant captains before Rillanon had come under Condoin rule. And conquering armies under the legendary generals passed here to bring subjugation to other nations when Rillanon and Bastira first began their trade wars. Two city-states seeking dominance that would come to be called the Kingdom Sea. Kesh was old. Very old. Kafi said, "Of course, Your Highness. Those who are guests of the Empress will be housed in a special wing of the palace, overlooking the Olvarn Deep. It would be unkind to require you to ride this route daily." Erlon came out of his reverie and said, "But you ride this route each day, do you not?" There was a tiny tightening around the man's mouth as he said, "Of course, but those of us not of true Keshian blood understand our place in the scheme of things. We serve gladly, and such a small inconvenience is not even to be discussed." Erlon took the clue and let the subject drop. Coming down to meet him was an assortment of officials, each more colourfully dressed than the one before. The thundering drums ceased, and a band of musicians played something that sounded suspiciously like a kingdom tune, but played by those who had never heard such. To James he said, "Welcomed in such a grand fashion." James nodded absently. Since reaching the city, he had let old habits of watchfulness come to the fore. His eyes constantly scanned the crowd, looking for any sign that trouble was coming at Erlon. Messages had been dispatched to Krondor, and an answer had overtaken them. As the Keshian rider post had operated with amazing efficiency in carrying word to Ruther of Boric's death and bringing his answers. There had been many letters in the pouch the rider had carried. The Kingdom Rider was exhausted as he had been ordered not to surrender the contents of the diplomatic pouch to any but Earl James, Baron Locklear, or Prince Erlon. He had been escorted by a changing succession of Keshian post riders changing fresh horses at stations along the way. The man had ridden without stopping for over 3 weeks, halting only when exhaustion was overwhelming, otherwise napping in the saddle as well as eating while riding. James had commended the man and sent back word to Crondor with him, along with an order to return at a more sedate pace, as well as a recommendation for promotion and reward for his heroic ride. Refilling my tankard here real quick. Alright, I haven't missed anything. Welcome back, Frost. Are you feeling a little bit better after your shower? Frost is doing all right. I think he's got a sinus infection. He's feeling sick. Definitely help cool things down. Good. Oh, this is the perfect atmosphere for a story time right now. Overlooking the water, some live music over the other side of the marina. It's very nice. Wonderful, Crow. Are you on a trip, a vacation somewhere? Where are you at? Arutha's reply to the news of Boric's death had been what James expected. Closed off, all personal reaction to the news was absent. The Prince of Crondor let nothing sway him from the hard choices he faced as a ruler of the Western Realm. He had cautiously instructed Earl James to see the recovering Boric's body, but that under no circumstances was there to be any significant change in their demeanor. The envoy's first duty was to pay the kingdom's respects to the Empress on the event of her 75th birthday jubilee, and nothing was to cause more friction between the two nations. James smelled trouble. Boric had been murdered to plunge the Empire into war with the kingdom, but Arutha had refused to rise to the bait. This could only mean that an escalation in provocations, and the only thing James could imagine more provocative than killing one prince of the blood would be killing both of them. He felt personally responsible for Boric's death, and he had put his own grieving aside for the time while he protected Erlond. Glancing at his side, he noticed his wife watching him. To Gamina, he thought, "How are you doing, my love?"
"I'll be glad to be off of this horse at last, my love,"
came the answer. As Lady Gamina showed no outward signs of discomfort, she had borne up under the rigors of a long trip without complaint, and each night as she lay at James's side, she was well aware that their happiness at being together took away the day's discomfort, but could not eradicate James's pain at Boric's death, nor his concern for Erlon's well-being. She nodded toward the front of the procession.
"The most official welcome yet, my darling."
At least 100 officials stood just a short distance beyond the white and gold banner to welcome the prince and his retinue to the upper city. Erlon's eyes opened slightly at the sight. The first impression was disbelief. as if some odd joke was being perpetrated upon him. For standing before him were men and women wearing very little clothing and a great deal of jewellery. The common dress was a simple skirt or kilt fashioned from gauzy silk, wrapped once about the hips from the waist to mid-thigh. Ornate belts held the kilt in place, with golden clasps of complex designs common throughout the party. But both men and women alike were bare-chested, and the footgear of choice was an unadorned cross-gartered sandal. All the men had their heads shaved, and the women wore their hair cut short, at the shoulder or over the ear, with magnificent rows of gems and gold woven into the tresses. Coffee spoke with his head turned slightly towards Erland. Perhaps your highness did not know, but the nudity taboo common to your nation and some of the people of the empire does not exist among those of true Keshian blood. I also had to become accustomed to the sight. Among my people, to see another man's wife's face is to die. With an ironic note, he said, "These people are from a hot land, highness, but not so hot as my home desert, where to dress such would be to invite death. When you experience the long, hot, windy nights on the plateau, you will understand why here clothing is a matter of fashion only. And the Keshian Truebloods have never been terribly concerned with the sensibilities of their subject peoples. In Kesh, you do as true Keshians do, goes an old adage." Erlon nodded, attempting not to stare at so much skin. A man stepped forward, not much older than Erlon, powerfully muscled and carrying a shepherd's crook and a bow, both which appeared ceremonial rather than functional. His head was shaved, like the others, but for a lock of hair, tied with loops of precious stones and gems and gold. An instant later, another man, stout and obviously discomforted by standing in the hot sun, stepped to the first side. Ignoring the perspiration which coursed off his reddening skin, he said, "We welcome our guests." To the heavy man, Coffee said, "My lord Nirom, I have the honor of presenting His Highness, Prince Erland, heir to the throne of the Isles, Knight Captain of the armies of the West, and envoy to his she who is Kesh." "Your Highness," said the stout Nirome, "to honor your arrival, one of the Imperial blood comes to greet you. It is my great honor to present Prince Awari, son of she who is Kesh." The young man stepped forward again and spoke directly to Erland. "We welcome our brother Prince. May your stay here be happy, for as long as it pleases you, Prince Erland. For the King of the Isles to send his heir is an honor indeed. She who is mother to us all is pleased enough to have sent her poor son to abide you. I am to tell you that all Kesh's hearts are gladdened the moment you come to us, and that each moment of your stay is as riches in our treasury. Your wisdom and valor are unrivaled, and she who is Kesh waits with anticipation at welcoming you to her court." So saying, Prince Awari turned and began walking up the road. The men and women of the Imperial Welcoming Committee stepped aside so the Prince and Lord Nerome could pass. Then Coffee indicated the Prince and Baron Locklear should follow, with himself and Earl James behind. As they moved up the ramp, James turned to Coffee and said, "In truth, we know so little about the Empire, save that we see along its northern border. It would please His Highness if you could guest with us, and perhaps tell us more of this wondrous place." The man smiled, and James saw something in his eyes. "Your wish has been anticipated. I shall be outside your door at first light each day, and not begun from your side until you have given me leave to depart. The Empress, blessings be upon her, has ordered it so." James smiled and inclined his head. "So he's our watchdog." Kamina smiled at those nearby and said,
Among many, I'm sure, beloved.
James turned his attention to the front of the company, where Erlon followed the Imperial welcoming delegation. His wits and talents might be tested in the next 2.5 months, he knew, and he had but 2 basic tasks: keep Erlon alive and the kingdom out of war. I'm back. My internet is being fussy, so we'll see how long I'm back for. That's quite alright. Nope. Oh, you were working on the boat. That's right. I knew that. I knew that. I got a trawler and it was neglected for years, but it's very hardy. We do have a deadline to move it tomorrow, so we're staying late to get the engine going. Well, very good. It's good fun. You most definitely would, Bear. I don't think a lot of people, if you've never been to a big city, and I don't say, I'm sure most of you in here have been to big cities, but there are few cities that are as big and as boisterous as Los Angeles and New York. Like, they are absolutely incredibly difficult to deal with. And I've been to a lot of places in the world, but there are few places that are as discomforting to me as downtown Los Angeles. And I've lived out here for almost 20 years. There's a massive cultural difference in cities that is hard to reconcile when you're used to the slow stature of the countryside. Houston is definitely a big city, but Houston is not nearly as chaotic as Los Angeles is. Like, I've been to Houston, I've been to Austin. Houston is a decent sized city, that's for sure. But it doesn't have the same level of just chaos that California does. Couldn't handle LA. Been to even Vegas. Vegas isn't nearly as big as Los Angeles is, and I even have a hard time with Vegas. I mean, we don't live directly in the city center where we are. We live a good deal from the city, but Los Angeles is like this big series of connected cities that is just completely uninterrupted. Yeah, and Orlando is a big city too, but again, it's not nearly as Miami would be closer to Los Angeles. Miami would be closer to Los Angeles. Orlando is closer to like Anaheim. Vegas is designed over all the senses. It's awful. Yeah, it is awful if you're easily overwhelmed. Sydney, Australia is much like a little New York, though. I was born and raised north of Sydney, worked there for years. I have no fondness of it. The only time I've been to Sydney, I was very young, so I can't say confidently about Sydney, Australia, because I was very young. But Sydney is definitely a bustly city, but Australians in general just tend to move a little bit slower than New Yorkers. Like, New Yorkers are crazy people. I've only barely lived there. I was TDY there for months, so I called. It lived on. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Los Angeles is the biggest city that I've ever lived in, and admittedly, it's one of the biggest cities in the world. But even a city like Berlin is massive and it has huge buildings, but Berlin is not nearly as insufferable as New York or Los Angeles is. Driving in New York has one goal: get to the next light as fast as you can. Yeah, I would never drive in New York. I would never drive in New York. We passed through New York when we were moving my sister, and New York was I haven't been to the east coast of the United States in like 12 years. 10 years, 12 years, something like that. And it was rough. New York City's rough. I miss when Wichita was the biggest city I'd ever known. City life doesn't suit me. I'm with you there. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Santana. Brandon, hello there. How are you doing? I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing tonight? We're in the midst of story time, and I don't even like taking a taxi in New York. Yeah. If I ever visit New York again, and I might, because the lady's never really been, it would be for very specific reasons. And as much as I don't like the subway in Los Angeles or in New York, I would. I just bought the cheapest gas in Southern California today, and it was $5.80 a gallon. All right, we're going to dive back in after that depressing note. Yeah, the gas stations around here because we have one of the highest gas taxes in the world, but definitely one of the highest in the United States. We went from $3.99 last probably in December. We were at like $3.99, and now we are between $5.70 and $6.80 all over here. It is insane. Alright, back into the story. Erlon was almost incapable of words. His apartment was a 6-room complex set off of the wing of the palace set aside for them, which itself was nearly as large as his father's palace in Krondor. The Imperial Palace was indeed a city unto itself, and the guest apartments were opulent beyond imagining. The stone walls had all been faced with marble, polished to a brilliance that reflected back torchlight like a sparkle of 1,000 jewels. Rather than the kingdom fashion of many small rooms, all the rooms in the apartment were large, but able to be partitioned by hanging curtains or of a variety of opacity. Right now, the only curtains were to his right and left. Both were transparent gauze, allowing him to see what divans and chairs were arrayed in anticipation of his need for holding conferences, and at his left, a large terrace permitted a stunning view of the Auvergne Deep, the gigantic freshwater lake that was the heart of this empire. The sleeping chamber lay just beyond a pair of doors in this, the audience chamber where he could meet with his advisors if needed. Erlon signaled one of his guards, detailed to act as servants, to open the large door. Before they could react, a young woman appeared at his side.
My lord,
She said, clapping her hands loudly. The door swung open and Erlon nodded absently as he stepped through to what was his sleeping chamber. The prince halted at the sight which greeted him. Everywhere he glanced he saw gold. It was used on the tables and divans, stools and chairs that were arrayed around the room, for whatever needs he might have while dressing, composing messages, or eating a solitary meal. High upon the wall the marble ceased and was replaced by sandstone, upon which murals of bright color had been painted against the muted ochre of the sandstone. In the stylized Keshin fashion, they showed warriors, kings, and gods, many depicted with animal heads, as the Keshians gave aspects of their gods that differed markedly from how they were perceived in the kingdom. Erlon stood silently, taking in the splendor of the room. A giant bed dominated the chamber, surrounded on 3 sides by gauzy silk curtains, hanging from the ceiling 20 feet above his head. The bed was twice the size of his own large bed at home, which had seemed immense when he and Boric had returned from their service with Lord Highcastle, given that they'd been used to sleeping on the narrow cots at Highcastle's barracks. Thinking about Boric made Erlond wistful for a moment, as he wished that he could share his astonishment with his brother. For countless times again since the attack, Erlond could not admit his brother's death. Somehow it just didn't feel within as if Boric was dead. He was out there somewhere, Erlond was certain. The young woman had entered with them, clapped again, and suddenly the room was filled with activity. The prince's guards stood in a mute amazement as the seemingly endless parade of Keshian servants who paraded through the suite, first for their quick efficiency in the unpacking of the prince's baggage and laying out of formal clothing upon the armoire nearby, but mostly for the fact that they were women, all beautiful and all clad in the same scanty fashion as the welcoming committee. The only difference was the lack of jewelry. The plain kilt was bound about the waist and with a linen belt. Other than that, the women were naked. Crossing to where the two guards stood, Erlond said, "Go get something to eat. If I need you, I'll send word." The two saluted and turned, obvious uncertain of where to go, but as if reading the prince's mind, a young woman said, "This way," and led them off. Another young woman, with eyes mahogany brown, came to stand before Erlond.
If it pleases, my lord, your bath is ready.
Erlond noticed her belt was red, with a gold clasp, instead of the common white one, and assumed her to be one in charge of this host of young women. Feeling suddenly both overdressed and in the still hot air of the palace, and dirty from the 2 days' ride, Erlond nodded and followed the woman into the next chamber. There was a pool at least 30 feet long awaiting him. At the far end, a golden statue of some sort of water spirit held a vase pouring water into the pool. Erlond glanced around, for at least 5 women waited for him in the pool, all without clothing. 2 others stepped to his side, while one who led him turned and began unfastening his tunic. Began Erlond, reflexively stepping away.
Is there something amiss, my lord?
Said the young woman with mahogany eyes. Erlond was suddenly aware that her dark skin was several hues, a reddish warmth of suntan over the naturally dark olive-tinged duskiness. Her black hair was pulled back into a tight braid, and Erlond noticed her very long neck. Erlond started to speak and then stopped, uncertain of what to say. Had Boric been with him, he was sure the two of them would both be splashing about the pool, testing the limits of their prerogatives with the lovely serving women. But alone he felt awkward. "What is your name?"
Mia, my lord.
"Ah, Mia." He glanced at all the lovely ladies waiting for him to make his requirements known. "In my land, it is not custom for so many servants to... so many are not needed." The young woman's eyes searched for an instant. Softly she answered,
If my lord would indicate which servants he finds pleasing, I will send the rest away.
She hesitated a second, then added,
Or, should you wish but one, I would be most honored to care for your needs, my lord.
The last was said with clear meaning. Erlond shook his head. No, I mean, he sighed in resignation. Just get on with it. Deft hands stripped him of his clothes, and when he was nude, he stepped quickly into the pool, feeling awkward and self-conscious. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate you, brother. I hope you and your lovely wife have a spectacular vacation. Songbird, hello. Thank you for the heart me, the Go Populars, the Shards of Hope, the lives, the thumbs up, the You're Awesomes, the TikToks, and the TGIFs. Thank you kindly. Mai seems to be somewhat listening. She's... Yada, yada, yada. I appreciate you for the tips to the Tavern Keeper, though. Thank you very much. I'm enjoying a pint of beer whilst listening to the peacefulness of story time. Well, welcome in, Michael. It's good to see you. Yeah, all right. We'll take a quick. We can probably skip this bath scene. For being perfectly honest, I don't know if anybody's super invested in the bath scene. We could probably skip this. Okay, yeah, we'll skip the rest of the bath scene, unless you guys are all overly invested in it. But what it seems like is going to happen happens. He stops being awkward in just a minute. All right, friends, I'm gonna run. I'm gonna go check on the lady, because she's not feeling well. I'm gonna run ads right quick for our Twitch friends. No, it's not terribly graphic, but what we think happens happens. So there we go. I don't want to get kicked off of TikTok. TikTok is weird about those sorts of things. I'm gonna run ads for our Twitch friends real quick, and then I will be right back. And in the meantime, I am going to put on the ladies' playlist for you all, and I will be right back. I'm gonna mute you. Put you on. All right. I'll be right back, friends.
The wheel has begun. The hammer is falling.
sea foam, the light is finding its long way home.
Wake from the ice sleep, the fire is won, the sky candle rises, the wheel has begun, the hammer is falling on shackles of coal, turning the silver to rivers of gold.
of glass, a shivering vein is drinking the mist and the firstborn rain. The love of a mountain is shedding its mantle of white as the river uncoils in the pale morning light. Rise from the deep, oh silver thread, wake every root from its frozen bed. The ice is a skin that is peeling away to leave the green heart of a new coming day. Flow, little serpent, flow to the sea, set the heart of the valley free. The calic retreats to her cave in the mist, where the frost and the shadows have finally kissed. She leaves her blue staff in the mud and the clay, as the sun warmth of greed washes winter away. The pulse of the forest is
Alright. Maddie, I bring you Milo. What's up? Here. Look. You gotta hang out if you want. You gotta hang out if you want a snack, dude. Oop, that didn't work. Hang on. Hang on a second. Trying to get the cat his snack. Relax a second. Good God. Milo, come here. Dude. Neck. Come on. Yeah, get up here. Okay, come on, get up. Come on, come get it. Come on. Come get it. There you go. All right. Yes, this is Milo. Go away. Go away. Let me see if I can get him to, like, get his head in here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. There we go. I had to bribe him so that he would come out for you, Matty. Any well wishes for your lady? Hopefully, whatever's wrong. Yeah, she has a bad habit of not drinking enough water, and then she gets dehydrated. And we're both in the process of quitting caffeine right now as well, so that's also not helping. Why are you biting the end of it, dude? Just lick. Just lick. Lick, not bite. Lick, not bite. It is a lick snack, not a bite snack. Lick snack, not bite snack. Oh my gosh, you're getting it all over the place. It stinks too. Yeah, Coda was coming up behind. Cassie, hello! Yeah, we couldn't make it on yesterday, so I'm doing a makeup story time tonight. We had some commitments that needed to get done that I couldn't get finished quite quick enough last night to get on at a reasonable hour. So we're doing adult story time tonight. Schedule will be regular next week. So spoiled. Your one job is, well, you have two jobs. Make mom happy and then occasionally show up for tavern folk when they want to see your cute little butt. Yeah, but this is Milo. He's huge now. He is a purebred Bengal, or at least we think he's a purebred Bengal. And he is turned into an absolute unit. He's huge. He is a handsome kitty. Still not very bright. Though we are slowly solving some of it. Okay, you need to lick what's on your lips off. You got it all over you. Okay. Alright, get the stuff that's in your mouth. You're gonna drool your chicken paste on me. Just lick it, dude. Stop trying to bite it. Oh my gosh, you're so dumb. You're so dumb. Hang on, I'm getting it out. Relax. You can't eat the packaging, dummy. I don't know how to break this to you, but aluminum does not taste like chicken.
He doesn't. It's
Yeah,
coming with the aluminum.
Okay, throw that away. What a nutcase. Okay, now you can do your work properly. There you go. That's Milo. I don't have any more. You got your snack. Now you have to do your job. But I don't even think Matty's in here. That's the funny thing. My dog is using me as a barrier from the AC right now. I'm a body blocker, apparently. My kitty said meow to Milo. Let's see, you got fans. You got fans because you're such a handsome boy. They don't know how dumb you are, so you can get away with having online friends because they don't know how absolutely empty your brain is. Your Highness, hello, welcome in. Also, Everett Bear says hello. We got ourselves a raid from the kingdom. Welcome in, raiders. Can I get one of the barkeeps to shout out His Highness for me? Both my girls are 2 years old, Miss Abby and Miss Luna. Ah, we have Boo, who is six years old, and then we have Milo, who is just about to be a year old. And of course, they're all rescues. The lady has a bleeding heart. The dog is also a rescue. Certainly, the less. It's hard to tell which one of them is less intelligent. If I'm being perfectly honest, they all lack any sort of survival instinct. If we're being totally fair, but yeah, there's that. What? This? It's a little taskbar adventure. Yeah. Yeah. You got a double shot? Oh, I appreciate you. All right, let's get a toot on the raid horn for our raiders from the kingdom. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Well, what's interesting is that when the lady went and got Milo, she thought she was buying a kitten. They don't anymore because they don't have to, you guys. It's true. They have no survival instincts. I cannot give up caffeine. Cannot help it. I'm having medical issues that caffeine is exasperating. So I have to I have to get rid of caffeine and a bunch of other things I'm not really happy about. Milo is really good at getting into trouble and knocking things over, but that's about as smart as he ever gets. Off to grab a refill. Go ahead and do it, and we'll be back to story time here in just a minute. But everybody, make sure you tease Maddie about how he didn't get his extra long Tavern Kitty exposure because he wasn't here. We can say hello to the doggo. Might as well while we're here. Come here. Come say hello. You already poked your head in. Come say hi to everybody. Up, up. Up, up. Come on. Up, up. What do you do? Just get up. Such a dork. Yeah. There he is. That's Coda. He's not very bright, but he's very handsome. Not very bright, but he's very handsome. All right, you're free to go. My fiance said I would love watching you because he showed me Milo and all I could say was, oh. We have a couple of tavern beasts who occasionally make appearances during story time. Not super often, but every now and again. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. That would be extra funny, I think. He's gonna bail out after he asked for some animals. Can't do that. All right, we're gonna get back into. Yeah, I had to mute. The boy was asking me a question, so we're gonna continue because I think we left off at the bath scene. I think we're gonna skip the bath scene. I always thought it was funny. We had polar opposite dogs, same breed, but ours is all black psychopath, while yours is all white and completely dopey and mild. Yeah, he gets very aggressive with other dogs, and not even to a point of like he's not intentionally trying to hurt other dogs, but he plays very aggressively with other dogs. But when he's by himself, he's just a little dope. Unless there's a lot of noise, in which case then he's a little bit insufferable. And then Santana buys a round for the tavern. Hear ye, he says. All right, let me get my ears back in, and we'll get back on with the story. I told you what happens, Wesley. I can go in 25 minutes-ish. Well, we've only got about an hour of story time left, so I have a lot I have to get done tonight. So it is going to be a heck of a thing to get all of this done before then. Ride is the same. I don't think he's ever intentionally hurt another dog. He's very aggressive with his play, and he's very mouthy, so I keep him... Yeah. If we ever take Coda to the park, we always muzzle him. Because he gets so up in everybody else's business that other dogs just get upset with him. Your Highness, hello and welcome in. It's good to see you. So very glad that you could join us. I hope you and Jen and all the denizens of the kingdom are doing well. Hope you all had a wonderful night tonight. What were we up to this fine evening? I made it. Oh no, dog parks are out of the question for us. Too many owners that don't parent their pups. Yeah, it is a concern. Coda is big enough, and I keep a close enough eye on him that I'm not really concerned about it, because I can break them up if I need to, but we don't often take him, and when we do, we try to go when it's less busy, and we'll take him to like one of the isolated things. I'm here. I saw Kitty. Oh, you're just getting critiqued. I see. All right. Well, let us continue. Erlond takes a bath with a bunch of Keshian women, and exactly what you expect to happen happens. So there you go. One of the show, and then now he's in bed. Is this all your mom wanted you to do? Hang on. Well, one of your notebooks is over by your mom's chair. Don't ask me why, but that's where it is. We're helping out a barbarian named Latrine. Ooh, sounds like a stinky situation. Onward with the awkward bath. We're gonna skip the awkward bath scene, and gonna go straight to when Erlond is waking up. One of the servants shook his foot as she whispered, "My lord." Erlond elbowed himself up to see what was occurring and blinked through sleepy eyes. Rousing himself fully awake, Erlond said, "What?"
Lord James sends word that he will be here within the half hour, my lord. He advises you be ready for your presentation to the Empress. You must get dressed.
Erlond looked first right and then left, found himself hemmed in on both sides by two motionless bodies. On his right, the sleeping Maya made soft breathing sounds, while on the left, another servant, one with startling green eyes, he remembered, but he couldn't recall her name, watched him through half-closed eyelids. Slapping Maya playfully on her bare buttocks, he said, "Time to get me ready, my darlings." Maya responded by coming fully awake and out of the huge bed in one fluid motion. She signaled by clapping her hands once, and instantly a half-dozen more slaves appeared with Erlon's wardrobe cleaned and ready to wear. Erlon jumped out of the bed and motioned for them to wait, and he hurried into the room with the pool, motioning the servants stay out of his way. He walked down the 3 steps, dunked himself under, rinsed himself off. To Maya, who had followed him, he remarked, "I was drenched, and I needed this." The woman smiled slightly.
You were very active for a time, my lord.
Erlon returned the slight smile.
Is it always so hot?
The girl said.
This is the summer season, so it is like this. Fans are used to cool those who wish them. In the winter, it is very cold at night, and many furs are needed upon the beds to keep them warm.
Erlon found that hard to imagine as he left the pool. 3 women dried him quickly and he returned to the bedchamber. Being helped to get dressed turned out to be more difficult than he had imagined. He kept trying to do things for himself that interfered with the women attempting to fasten laces or buckle clasps. But he was fully dressed when Earl James was announced. Elon nodded permission for him to enter. James appeared and said, "Oh, you look better. Have a nice nap." Elon glanced about the abundant female flesh on display and said, "Quite nice, actually." James laughed. Gamina was not pleased to see so many beautiful young women in our suite, so they sent some handsome young men. She became very distressed when they offered to help her bathe. He glanced about. I would call them a wanton people, but to them this is normal. To them we must appear. Well, I don't know how we appear. Motioning Erlon to come with him, the Earl led the young man to the large hallway where Locklear and Gamina were speaking. As they entered, Gamina's mind spoke to Erlon. "Erlon, James has already marked 2 listening posts in our chambers. Be wary of what you say aloud." "I would be willing to say that at least one of my servants is a Keshian intelligence officer," he thought back to her. Just a second, guys. BRB grabbing tacos, that seems like a spectacular usage of your time, Your Highness. Ugh. There was a silence as the Keshian officer, in the same dress they had seen everywhere, the white kilt and sandals, came for them. But she also wore an ornate toque of gold and turquoise, and carried a staff of office. "This way, Your Highnesses. My lords, my lady." She led them down the long hall where the entrances to vast chambers and apartments were alternated within open breezeways. Through the breezeways, fountains and small gardens would be illuminated by standards with torches placed atop them. As they passed many such gardens, James said, "You might as well get used to those naps, Highness. It's a custom here. Court business in the morning, the Empress and her privy officers, an afternoon meal, nap from after lunch to evening, and court business from sundown to about the 9th hour, then supper." Erlon glanced at several serving women passing by, again wearing nothing but the small kilt. "I'll manage," he said. The thought came from Gamina, not a vocalized word, but an attitude, and it was wholly disapproving. At the end of the hallway, they intersected and entered an even larger hallway. Columns of stone were all faced with marble and rose to a height of 3 stories overhead. The walls on both sides of the hallway were painted and stylized with renderings of great events and mythical battles between gods and demons. Down to the center of the hall they walked, and their feet treading on a carpet of fabulous design and weave, impossibly long, yet without apparent flaw. Rest in peace, Bath scene I hardly knew. I think we knew it well enough. We knew it well enough. I don't want to get banned on TikTok. We almost get banned on TikTok all the time. I don't want to get banned on TikTok, alright? I'm trying to be good. Waffles. Alright, where was I? Every 20 feet or so, a Keshian guard stood at the ready. Elon noticed how little these men looked like the famous dog soldiers who manned the frontier of the kingdom. These soldiers seemed to have been chosen for their appearance more than their experience, Elon thought. Each wore only the short kilt, though of different design, cut away in front so that the legs might move more freely. Each man wore a breechcloth of the same white linen as the kilt, and an ornate belt fashioned of many colors, closed in front by a silver clasp. Each soldier wore the plain, cross-gartered sandals as well. Upon their heads were helms of fascinating design to Erlond, barbaric, primitive-looking. One wore a leopard skull atop his head, with the skin of the animal allowed to fall over his shoulders. A few others wore elk heads and bear heads in a similar fashion. Many more wore hawk and eagle feathers attached to ivory rings, set them upon their heads or helms fashioned from brightly colored parrot plumes. And a few high conical helms made of reeds dyed bright colors that looked far from functional for battle. A grand display, isn't it? James spoke aloud. Elon nodded. Nothing he had seen so far in the upper city of Kesh spoke of anything less than excess. In contrast with what they had seen in the lower city, it was even more overwhelming. In even the most minor detail, richness and opulence was the order of the day. Where something base could suffice, it was replaced with something noble. Gold in place of common iron, gems in place of glass, silk where cotton would be expected. And after passing through more chambers and halls, he knew the same held true for the servants. If a man was needed, he must not only be fit and able, he had to be handsome. If a woman were to be seen walking through the halls, even by chance, then she must be lovely and young. A few more days of this, thought Erlon, and I'll welcome the sight of a plain face. Reaching a massive pair of doors, gold-leafed over all, the officer who led them brought the metal butt of the staff down on the floor, announcing, Prince Erland, the Earl James, the Countess Gamina, and Baron Nuclear. The doors swung open wide, and through them Erlon could see a vast hall, at least 100 yards from where they stood to the opposite wall, and against that distant wall a high dais rose, upon which sat a golden throne. Out of the side of his mouth, Erlon said, You didn't tell me it was a formal reception. James said, It isn't. This is a casual, intimate dinner. I can hardly wait for the formal court. Taking a deep breath, Erlon said, Well, then let us take a bite with Her Majesty. Stepping forward, Prince Erlon led his advisors into the hall of the Empress of Great Kesh. Damn, now I would waffles. What I wouldn't give for a walk-in bath. The lady was just talking about that the other day, Bear, about how she really wants either like a Japanese-style bath or like a Greek-style walk-in bath. Here's to love and here's to honor. Herring buys around for the tavern, raise a glass. Slanja. Mentioned this above. Never know what TikTok allows. You might get banned for what someone else does. So yeah, we've been on pins and needles with TikTok forever. Sometimes we're fine, and sometimes they'll put the thumb screws to me for no reason at all. Erlon marched purposefully and directly down the center of the hall. The sound of boot heels cracking against the stone floor seemed alien. A loud and brash intrusion in this hall where the soft leather of sandals and slippers were the norm. Silence drank the noise as no one in the hall spoke and all eyes were upon the retinue from the kingdom of the Isles. Upon the dais before the golden throne a pile of cushions had been placed, and laying upon them was an old woman. Erlon tried to look directly at her, yet not stare, and found the task impossible. Here, reclining upon the cushions before the mightiest throne in the known world, was the single most powerful ruler in the known world, and she was a tiny, withered woman of unremarkable appearance. Her costume was similar to the customary short white kilt, though hers was long, reaching past her knees. Also, her belt was studded with magnificent gems, which caught the torchlight and sent sparkles dancing upon the walls and ceiling. She wore a loose vest of white fabric, clasped in front by a golden brooch set with a stunning pigeon's blood ruby. Upon her head a diadem of gold rested, set with the sapphires and rubies equal to any the prince had ever seen before. The ransom of a nation rested upon the body of this old woman. Her dusky skin couldn't hide the pallor of age, and her movements were those of a woman 10 years more than her 75. But it was her eyes that made Erlon sense greatness, for they still had fire. Dark eyes with lights as brilliant as those in the sapphires and rubies upon her brow, dancing in them, regarded the prince as he walked along the aisle between the diners who shared the evening with the empress. Around the base of the dais a dozen low tables had been placed in a semicircle, and around each round table, reclining on cushions, were those who the empress deemed worthy of such an honor. Erlon came to stand before the empress and bowed his head, no more than he would do to his own uncle, King James, his own uncle the king. James, Gamina, and Locklear bent their knee, as they had been instructed by the protocol officer, waiting the signal to rise.
How fares the Prince of the Isles?
The woman's voice was lightning cutting through the languid summer's afternoon, and Erland almost jumped at the tone of it. The simple question contained nuances and meanings beyond the young man's ability to articulate. Overcoming an unexpected attack of panic, Erlon answered as calmly as possible. Well, Your Majesty, my uncle, the King of the Isles, sends his wishes for your continued good health and well-being. With a chuckle, she answered,
As well he should, my prince. I am his best friend in this court, have no doubt.
She sighed and then said,
With this business of the Jubilee over with, return Kesh's fondest wishes for Isle's continued well-being. We have much in common. Now, who is this with you?
Erlon made introductions, and when that was done, the Empress surprised them all by sitting up slightly and saying,
Countess, would you do me the courtesy of approaching?
Gamina flashed a quick glance at James and then moved up the 10 steps that put her before the Empress.
You of the North can be so fair, but I have never seen your like,
said the old woman.
You're not from the area near Stoddok originally, are you? No, Your Majesty,
answered Gamina.
Was born in the mountains north of Romney.
The Empress nodded as if this explained everything.
Return to your husband, my dear. Your looks are lovely in their exotic fashion.
As Gamina descended from the dais, the Empress said,
Your Highness, a table has been set aside for your party. You will do me the pleasure of dining with us.
The Prince bowed again and said, It is our honor, Your Majesty. When they were seated at the indicated table, that one closest to the Empress, save one, another courtier appeared and announced, Prince Awari, son of she who is Kesh. The prince, who had met Erlon that afternoon, made his entrance from the side door that Erlon assumed came from another different wing of the palace than the one in which his party was housed. "If I may advise His Highness," came a voice from Erlon's right, and he turned to find Kafi Abdul Harez had insinuated himself between the prince and Earl James. "Her Majesty, may she prosper, considered your potential for discomfort, had so many new things, and instructed me to sit at your side and answer whatever questions you might have."
"And discover what it is we are curious about,"
came Gamina's thoughts. Erlon nodded slightly, and to Kafi, it appeared he was merely considering this. But Gamina knew that he was agreeing with her. Then the courtier cried, "Princess Sharana!" Behind a warrior came a young woman near Erlon's age. From her appearance, Erlon felt his breath catch in his throat at the sight of the Empress's granddaughter. In this palace of beautiful women, she was stunning. Her dress was in fashion of all the others he'd seen, but like the Empress, she also wore a linen vest, and her allure was heightened by more of her being hidden from view. Her arms and face were the color of pale almonds turned golden by the hot Keshian sun. Her hair was cut at the forehead and shoulders, square and without fashion, but she wore a long braid in the back, interwoven with gems and solid gold. Then the courtier shouted, "The Princess Sojiana!" Locklear almost came out of his seat. If the Princess Sharana was the loveliest in its loveliness in its first bloom, then her mother, Sojiana, was beauty at its height. A tall woman of athletic stature, she moved like a dancer, each step designed to show her body to maximum advantage. And an exceptional body it was, long-limbed, flat-stomached, ample breasts. She had look of fullness without a hint of fat, of softness over firm muscle. She wore only the white kilt and the golden girdle rather than the white belt, and around her arms 2 golden serpents coiled, and around her neck she wore a golden torque, set with fire opals, all of which set off her dusky tan skin. Her hair was brown, the brown of wine-soaked wood, red as abundant as brown, and from her face, as striking as her body, eyes of the most startling green regarded her mother.
"Gods," said Locklear, "she's astonishing."
The desert man concurred. "The princess is considered among the most beautiful of the true blood, my lord Baron." There was a guarded tone in this observation. James looked at Coffee with an odd, questioning expression on his face, but the desert man seemed unwilling to speak. After enduring James's stare for a moment, he took note of Locklear's rapt attention to the princess as she came to stand before her mother, and at last said, "Lord Locklear, I feel the need to add a note of caution." He glanced back at Princess Sojiana as she reached the dais and whispered, "She is the most dangerous woman in their court after the Empress. And that makes her the second most dangerous woman in this world." With a defiant grin, Locklear said, "I can well believe that. She's breathtaking, and I think I could rise to the challenge." Gamina gave him a dark look at the crude joke, but the desert man forced a smile. "She may give you the opportunity. It is said her tastes are adventuresome." James didn't miss Coffee's true message. Even if Locklear was too enamored with the woman to listen, James gave Coffee a slight nod of thanks at the warning. Unlike Awari and Sharana, Sojiana did not simply bow before the Empress and retire to the table set aside for the imperial family, but she bowed and spoke.
"Is my mother well?"
she asked in a formal tone.
"I am well, my daughter. We've ruled another day in Kesh."
The princess bowed and said,
"And my prayers are answered."
She then moved to sit beside her brother and daughter, and the servants entered the hall. I'm glad you enjoy, Elizabeth. I'm glad you enjoy. All right, we're almost to the end of this chapter. See, we're also getting very close to the end of the book. Like we're almost 2/3 of the way through, which is something. Let's see. We've got about half an hour left. We might be able to get another chapter in. I think we could probably get another chapter in. Definitely a femme fatale, Clifford. Definitely a femme fatale. Here's back on. Good night, Wesley. Rest well. All right, we got a little bit more in this chapter, and then we'll probably be able to do another one. All right. Dishes of remarkable variety were presented one after another, and Erlon had to consider what to try every minute or two. Wines were brought forth, dry and sweet, red and white, and the latter chilled by ice, brought down from the peaks of the Guardian Mountains. To the Keshian, Erlon said, "Tell me, then, why were the Imperial family members last to enter?" Kafi said, "It is the strange way we in Kesh do things. Those of the least importance must enter first, the slaves, the servants, the minor court officials, who make all ready for the highborn. Then she who is Kesh enters, and takes her place upon the dais. Then come the others of noble birth and special merit, again in the order of least to most important. You're the only ranking noble in attendance besides the imperial family, so you entered just before Prince Awari." Erlon nodded and then found himself struck by an oddity. That would mean his niece, Sharana, is higher in rank in the court than the prince. Finished Coffee, glancing about the room. "This is something of a family dispute, my prince." "And something he doesn't wish to speak of here," added Gamina. Erlon gave her a glance and said, "I'm not reading his thoughts, Highness. I would not do that with anyone who did not give me permission, but he's announcing it. I can't explain it better, but he is straining to not speak about many things." Erlon let it drop and began asking questions about the court. Kafi answered very much in the same way a bored history teacher might, save when questions could lead him into funny, embarrassing, or scandalous anecdotes. He was revealed to be something of a gossip. James chose to let the others do most of the speaking while he sifted through the answers Coffee gave. While the meal continued, he pieced together hints of tantalizing bits of this and that and fitted them into patterns of what he already knew. Kesh was as complex as an anthill, and it was only the presence of the hill's queen, the Empress, bless you, my darling, that maintained order. Factions and old national rivalries and age-old feuds were facts of Keshian court life, and the Empress kept her empire intact by playing off one faction against another. James sipped a fine, dry red wine and considered what part they were to play in this drama. For he knew, as certain as he knew boots hurt his feet, that their presence would be seized upon by someone to further his own political ends. The question would be who would try the seizing and what his motives would be. To himself he added, not to mention how much a person would attempt to employ Erlon's presence in the court. It was clear that at least one faction in the court wanted Erlon dead, and war between the kingdom and the empire. James glanced around the room and then tasted the dry red wine again. As he savored it, He considered that he was a stranger in a very strange land, and he would quickly have to learn his way around. He let his gaze wander, studying faces here and there, and found more than half a dozen faces studying him in return. He sighed. There would be time, and he doubted much trouble would arrive the first night they were in the palace. For if he were in charge of murdering Erlon, he would do so when were more guests to throw off suspicion, and the effect of the death would do more to ruin the Empress's jubilee. Unless, of course, he amended, it was the Empress herself who wished Erlon's death. He picked up a delicately seasoned piece of melon off his plate and ate it, savoring the taste. He decided to let matters of state go for a few hours, but less than a minute later, he found his gaze wandering again about the room as he sought some clue, some hint from where the next attack might originate. And there ends chapter 9. The next chapter is a short one. I think, let's see. Yeah, the next chapter is, well, it's not short, but it's 12 pages. We should be able to get through this next chapter before the end. So we're going to run ads for our Twitch friends again. It'll be 3 minutes and then you'll be back. But it will keep us ad-free for an hour for the rest of Storytime. So, let's go ahead and get those out of the way. Oh, let's go one more chapter. Yes, we'll get one more in, to be sure. It is interesting. It seems to me, and I can't really put my finger on it, but this story is not as well written as The Magician. Oh, so sorry about the caffeine. No, you're fine, Songbird. Something about this book, and again, I can't put my finger on it directly. It's just not as well put together as the previous story was. Like the previous collection, I guess we could say, was very good. Like there was few bits that could be put to any sort of scruples, I would say. But in this book, there's a lot more that is like he's got a lot more that is like redundant, and the writing isn't as careful. It's odd. I can't even really articulate it in my mind because I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say. Bless you, my love. Will you shush? Shush. Shush. Yeah, the writing in this is just not quite as yeah, that's actually a good way to put it. It's not quite as gripping as it was in Magician and Darkness at Sethenon and... Well, it's not even really necessarily that it's slow. It's that, like, it seems like he wasn't as deliberate with how he wrote this. Well, like, so, like, for instance here, right? like I didn't recognize any of these things. So here in this sentence, he says, okay, James glanced around the room and then tasted the dry red wine again. He savoured it, okay? And then just a half a paragraph later, it says, he picked up a delicately seasoned piece of melon off his plate, ate it, savouring the taste. So he's using the same imagery, like he's not varying the language as much. And that sort of lack of variation makes it feel less polished in the way that it goes. Like, I'm still enjoying the story, but it's not quite as intentional as the previous books were. I definitely found his writing fell off after 8 or 9 books. Well, and I suppose that, when you've written that many stories, it's bound to happen. Because I felt like J.K. Rowling's writing in the first book was very, adolescent. But then in the second, third, and fourth book, it got much better. And then it dropped off again in the 5th, 6th, and 7th book. Like, she did improve in some areas, but then she also, her use of adjectives was out of this world. Like, there's so many adjectives. The only writer I think that I've not seen this happen with is really Tolkien, and that's probably because he didn't write as many books. He focused on making just really good books, the ones that he did write. Even my favorite author, like my favorite fantasy author, who is Gordon R. Dixon. He wrote the Dragon Knight series, and the Dragon Knight series is really good. Like, it's very solid all the way up to it's either the last or the second to last book in the series, which was called The Dragon and the Djinn, and it just did not feel as well thought out as the other books did. Because, all of the other books, they had a very practical and very, sensical, there's no big surprises in his books, but it's just, good high fantasy, middle ground sort of storytelling. But the Dragon and the Djinn essentially ended with a friendship circle where they used the power of friendship and holding hands to defeat a Djinn, and it just was so odd in contrast to his other work. It just didn't make any sense to me. It was just going to run for the sake of it. Yeah, and again, I haven't read Martin's later stuff, but I presume the same thing happens with Martin's work. This book and the next one, The King's Buccaneer, sort of lead up to the next series of books. So maybe these are just interlude books, and he wasn't putting as much diligence and effort into these. Maybe these were there was high pressure from his publisher or something. Because again, it doesn't. The story is still fine. I don't have any problems with the story, but the writing feels rushed. It doesn't feel as polished as what we got in Magician. The Magician quadrilogy, I guess, is really well polished. It's really well put together. And this was published back in 1989. So yeah, the publishing pressures in this time were probably really high, and they were probably just really pushing him to get another book out, I would presume. Yeah, it's just not as engaging even when it's slow. It is a much less polished and much less engaging. So, and again, I like the story. I'm not complaining about the story. And I still think that the story is good. But the writing is just not as engaging in this one as it was in the previous 4 books. Gotta wonder if writing the last book first, published or put out last, of course. It is a good question. Yeah, it is interesting. To be honest with you, I was kind of shocked because it's been hitting me, and there've been some sections where I'm stumbling over what I'm reading because it's like he's using a lot of the same like sentence length and stuff, and it kind of drags a little bit, and I've been sort of shocked by it because it's definitely not the standard that he set with Magician and the other books. So I would assume I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that this was probably a rushed book, because again the story is good and the story seems fairly well thought out, but he's also focusing a lot more on like superficial details rather than progressing the story forward. Because there's not a lot of wasted time in the previous books. Like, the previous books don't have a lot of wasted imagery. And the most out there out of all of them was The Darkness at Sethenon, which had a lot of, like, weird things in it, but everything kind of made sense at the end. This one has a lot of... I don't even really know how to explain. I would need to sit down with it and take notes to really get there. But the best story I've ever read was R.A. Salvatore's The Legend of Drizzt. Yeah, that one's been on the list for a while. A lot of people have wanted that one to be during Storytime. I don't think I have a rewrite. I have one of the original paperbacks from 1989. Yeah, I have the first edition publishing of August 1989 Bear. So if he did rewrite it, I would be interested to see the rewrite and see what was improved, because there's a lot in this that feels very rushed. And you also have to keep in mind that this is like before computers were really used. So a lot of manuscripts in the 1980s were either handwritten or written on typewriters. So those are really great books as well, really good high fantasy. I've only read one of the Drizzt books. He rewrote it in 2003. I have the rewrite copy. I'll have to pick up a digital version of the rewrite copy and compare the two, because I would be interested to see what he did. Because there's a lot in this that feels very rushed. I have book one in the novel form and graphic novel. Yeah, a lot of people really love Salvatore's work, and I've not read a whole lot of it, so I would be interested to read some of it, because I'm sure that I'm sure not everybody can be wrong about it being enjoyable fantasy. All right, let's get back in. We're gonna get this chapter knocked out. I'm gonna send you all off to bed. Thank you, Songbird. I appreciate you. All right. Chapter 10. Companion. The lookout pointed. Farafra! The captain called to trim the sails and rounded the headlands. And we're back with Boric. Fun. And I actually think that Boric's adventure is more interesting than the one that James and Erland are on. So I have actually enjoyed the Boric chapters quite a bit. The captain called to trim the sails, and they rounded the headlands and came into view of the Keshian seaport. A sailor at the rail turned to Boric and said, "Some fun tonight, eh, madman?" Boric smiled ruefully. From behind, the captain said, "Get aloft, and make ready the reef and sail." The sailors jumped to obey. 2 points to port, commanded the captain, and Boric turned the large ship's wheel to bring the ship to the indicated heading. Since joining the crew of the Good Traveller, he had earned the grudging respect of the captain and crew. Some tasks he did well, while others he seemed to have no understanding of, but learned quickly. His sense of the ship and the shifts in current and wind, learned while sailing small boats as a boy, had earned him a job of helmsman. One of the 3 sailors the captain allowed the task. Boric glanced upward, where Sully ran along a spar, negotiating the sheets and hawsers like a monkey. Sully had taken to the sea like one born to it. In the month they had been at sea, the child's body had put on a little bulk and muscle, made strong by the constant exercise and plain but filling food, hinting at the man he would be some day. See, like right there, like hinting at the man he would be someday. A smoother flow with how the sentence is set up, it would have been hinting at the man he would someday be. And that would be more typical of what Feist has done in the past. I could take pics of the afterword of my copy and send it to you if you want. No, I'd appreciate that, Bear. Thank you. The prince had kept his identity to himself, which probably wouldn't have mattered. After his lunatic behavior with the knife, he was called by crew and captain alike the madman. Claiming to be a prince of the Isles was unlikely to change their minds, he was sure. Sully was just the boy. Nobody had pressed them for why they had been drifting at sea in a boat near to sinking, as if to know such things was to invite trouble. From behind, the captain said, "A Ferrofon pilot will take us into harbour. Bloody nuisance, but that's just the way the port governor likes it. So we must heave to and wait." The captain called out to the reef's sails and made ready to drop anchor. A pair of green and white pennants were run up to request for a pilot. "Here is where you leave us, madman. The pilot will be here within the hour, and I'm putting you over the side, and we'll have you rowed to the beach outside the city." Boric said nothing. The captain studied the prince's face and said, "You're a fit lad, but you were no kind of sailor when you came aboard." His eyes narrowed and he said, "You know a ship like a sailing master knows one, not like a crew. You knew nothing of the most common sailor's duties." As he spoke, the captain kept glancing about, ensuring everyone was performing his tasks as he should. "It's like you spent your days upon the quarterdeck, never a minute below or aloft. A boy captain." Then his voice lowered. "Or the son of a rich man who owns ships." Boric moved the wheels slightly as the ship's speed dropped off, and the captain continued. "Your hands showed calluses, but those of a horseman. A soldier, not a sailor." He glanced about to see if anyone was shirking his duty. "Well, I'm not asking to know your story, madman, but I do know that the panache you had was from Durban. You'd not be the first pair to want out of Durban in a hurry. No, the more I think on it, the less I wish to know. I can't say you've been a good sailor, madman, but you've given your best, and been fair deckhand, with no complaining, and no man can ask for more." He glanced aloft and saw the sails were all in, and called out to anchor for the anchor to be dropped. Lashing the wheel while Boric held it steady, the captain said, "Normally, I'd have you bursting your liver hauling cargo until sundown with the rest of the men, not counting your work for passage, finished until then. But there's something about you which tells me trouble's following in your wake, so I'll have you off and unnoticed." He looked Boric up and down. "Well, get below and get your things. I know you robbed my men blind with your card tricks. It's a good thing I haven't paid them yet, or you'd have all their earnings, as well as the rest." Boric saluted and said, "Thank you, Captain." He turned towards the companionway and slid down the ladder to the main deck, yelling up at Sully, "Boy, come down and get your things." Good night, Cassie. Rest well. I got the bear. I'll take a look at him. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you. Oh, that was a good. Yeah, I'm sorry. I've not. The lady and I have been going to bed very late, and neither one of us has been sleeping well. Because we both are having, like, we're not sick, but we're both kind of having, like, body issues. I'm not going to burden you guys with more than that, but. I switched to the labels on my wife's spice cabinet. She hasn't noticed yet, but the time is cumin. That's funny. That is funny. Oh, yeah, listen to. The Durban beggar boys swung down the ratlines and met Boric at the entrance to the forecastle. They went inside, gathered together their few belongings. Besides the sheath knife and belt, Boric had won a small stake of coins, a pair of sailor's tunics, and a second pair of trousers, and a couple of light pieces of clothing for Suli. By the time they would emerge from below, the crowd was idly standing around, waiting upon the arrival of the Farafran pilot. Several bade the two goodbye as they crossed the rope ladder, which hung off the lee side of the ship. Below, a small captain's boat waited, with two sailors to row them to shore. Man! Boy! Said the captain as they turned to descend the ladder. Both hesitated, and he held out a tiny pouch. There's a quarter's wages. I'll not turn a man penniless into a Keshian city. It would be kinder to have left you to drown. Suli took the pouch and said, The captain is a kind and generous. As the boat was rowed towards the breakers, Boric took the pouch of coins and hefted it. Put it inside his tunic, next to the pouch he'd taken off of Salea. Letting out his breath, he considered his next action. To get to the city of Kesh, obviously, but how? That was the question. Deciding not to dwell on that until land was underfoot, he asked Suli. What did the captain mean? He'd not turn a penniless man into a Keshian city. It was one of the two sailors who answered before the boy could speak. To be penniless in Kesh is to be a corpse, madman. He shook his head slightly at Boric's ignorance. Life is cheap in Kesh. You could be the bloody king of cake, and if you didn't have a coin upon you, they'd let you die in the street, step over you as they go about their business, and curse your soul to the seven lower hells for your corpse being in the way. Suli said, It's true. Those of Kesh are animals. Boric laughed. Yo of Kesh. The boy spit over the side. We of Durban are not truly of Kesh, no more than the desert men. We have been conquered by them. We pay their taxes, but we are not Keshian. He pointed towards the city. Those are not Keshian. We are never allowed to forget this. In the city of Kesh, the true Keshians are found. You shall see. Boy is right, madman, said the talkative sailor. True Keshians are a strange lot. Don't see many along the Dragon Sea, and anywhere else except near the over and deep. Shave their heads and walk around naked they do, and don't care if you make free of their women. It's a fact. The other sailor grunted as if this was but another story yet to be proven to his satisfaction. The first said, They ride in their chariots, and they think they're better than us. They'd kill you as soon as look at you. Both sailors pulled hard as they neared the breaker line, and Boric felt the boat rising on the back of a comber. The first sailor returned to his narrative. And if one of them doesn't kill you, or the courts will just turn him loose. If in just common as you are, madman, it's being true bad. The second sailor said, That's fact enough. Watch yourself with true bloods. They think different than the rest of us. Honor's different. If you challenge one, he might fight you, might not. Won't care a fig about honor. But if he figures his grievance against you, why he tracks you like you would hunt an animal. The first sailor added, "He'll follow you to the edge of the world, if he has to. That's a fact, too." The breaker caught the boat and propelled it onto the beach. Boric and Sully jumped out into the waist-high water and helped the two rowers turn the boat around. Then, when the tide began to surge back out toward the sea, they gave the boat a shove so that the rowers would have the momentum to carry them over the breakers. Wading out of the water, the prince turned to the beggar boy and said, "Not the sort of welcome to Kesh I'd anticipated, but at least we're alive." He jiggled the pouch under his tunic. "Let's have some means to eat and are free of pursuit." He glanced back to where the ship waited for the Keshian pilot. He knew that sooner or later one of the seamen would mention the man and the boy picked up outside of Durban, and those who might be in this part of the empire seeking news of him would connect that fact with his escape. Then the hunt would be on again. Taking a deep breath, Boric said, "At least no pursuit for the moment." Slapping the boy playfully upon the back, he said, "Come, let's see what the Keshian city has to offer by way of a good hot meal." To that prospect, Sully agreed vigorously. Where Durban had been crowded, dirty, and miserable, Parafra was exotic, and crowded, dirty, and miserable. By the time they were halfway to the center of the city, Boric understood exactly what the captain had meant by his remark. For within 20 yards of the sea gate next to the docks, where they entered the city, a dead body lay rotting in the sun. Flies crawled over it, and from the mangled appearance of the torso, dogs had feasted some time before dawn. People passing the corpse ignored it, and the only noticeable reaction being from the occasional averting of eyes. Boric, looking around, said, Doesn't the city watch or someone do something?" Sully was peering in every direction, constantly on the lookout for any opportunity to make a coin or two. Absently, he said, "If some merchant nearby decides the stink is bad for business, he'll pay some boys to drag it to the harbour and toss it in. Otherwise it will lie there until it's no longer there." Sully seemed to take for granted that eventually some magic agency would dispose of the corpse. A few feet away, a man in robe squatted, ignoring those passing by. As Boric watched, the man stood, moved into the flow of traffic, leaving behind fresh proof he hadn't been squatting to say devotions to some god, but rather to answer the call of nature. "Gods above," said Boric. "Aren't there public jakes in this city?" Sully looked at him with a curious expression. "Public? I've never heard of such things. Who would build them and clean them? Why would anyone bother?" Boric said, "Never mind. Some things are just hard to get used to." As they entered the flow of the traffic from the docks into the city, Boric was astounded by the impossible variety of people. All manner of speech could be heard and all fashions of dress could be observed. It was unlike anything he'd seen before or expected to behold. Women passed by dressed in desert garb, covered from head to foot in plain blue and brown robes. Nothing shone but their eyes, while a few feet away hunters from the grassy plains stood inspecting goods, their dark oiled bodies naked save for the simple thong breechcloth. But their vanity showed in the copper bracelets, necklaces, and earrings they wore, and in their choice of weapons. Clan tattoos marked faces here, and odd temple robes marked beliefs there. Women with skin as dark as morning's coffee passed wearing brightly colored cloth, wrapped around from underarm to knee, with high conical hats of the same cloth. Babies with serious faces seemed to guard the rear, from slings hung over their mother's back. Children of every possible description raced through the street, chasing a dog who dodged through the forest of human legs before him. Boric laughed. "That dog runs as if his life is dependent upon it." Sully shrugged. "It does. Those street boys are hungry." Boric could hardly take it all in. It was just too much that was new to comprehend. Everywhere he looked, hundreds of people moved by, going one way or another, some strolling, others hurrying, but all oblivious to the throng surrounding them. And more than the press of bodies and the constant babble of voices, there was the smell. Unwashed bodies, expensive perfumes, human excrement, cooking, exotic spices, animal odors, all filled the nose with the reek of this alien land. The street was packed, and with little room to move without coming into contact with strangers, Boric was aware of the weight of his 2 purses in his tunic. As safe a place for them as he could manage, any pickpocket was going to have to stick an arm down the front of Boric's shirt, which seemed unlikely. Boric felt his senses assault him, and he needed respite. They came to an open front alehouse, and the prince motioned the boy to turn in. In the relative dark, he saw a pair of men speaking softly at a corner table, but otherwise the room was empty. Boric ordered a bitter ale for himself and a light ale for the boy, paying from the meagre purse the captain had given him, preferring to keep his more ample purse hidden in his shirt front. The brew was average in quality, but welcome for the long interval since Boric had tasted such. "Clear away!" A woman's shriek was followed by the clatter of hoofs and more shouts, punctuated by the crack of a whip. Boric and Sully both turned to see what the fuss was. Before the open front of the alehouse, a strange scene was unfolding. A pair of splendid bay horses pulling an ornate chariot were rearing and whinnying as they were halted by their driver. The cause of the sudden stop was a large man who stood foursquare in the center of the street. Behind the driver, the charioteer shouted, "Fool! Idiot! Get out of the way!" The man in the street walked towards the 2 horses and grabbed the bridle of each. He clucked with the side of his tongue and pushed, and the horses moved backwards. The driver cracked his whip behind the ear of one of the horses, shouting loudly, but the horses obeyed the constant pressure from the front rather than the noise from the back. The chariot was being backed up despite the driver's curses and protestations, while the charioteer behind him looked on in disbelief. The driver drew back to crack a whip again, and the man pushing the horses said, "Crack that thing one more, and it will be the last stupid act of your life." "Fascinating," remarked Boric. "I wonder why our large friend is doing that." The large friend was a mercenary soldier by his look, wearing leather armor over his green tunic and trousers. Upon his head rested an old metal helm, much dented and in desperate need of a wire brush and polish. And across his back was a leather sheath, containing what appeared to be a half and half, our bastard sword. Upon his side, 2 long dirk handles showed weapons at his belt. The man behind the chariot driver looked upon the man blocking the way in outrage. He was undressed save for his white kilt and odd weapons harness, crossed leather straps over his shoulders, forming an X across his chest. Spears were within easy reach of him, tied to the side of the chariot, looking like a boat's mast as they pointed straight up. A bow was slung to the side of the vehicle. With his face turning crimson, the charioteer shouted, "Make way, you idiot!" Sully whispered to Boric, "The man in the chariot is of Cherokeshian blood. He is also a member of the Order of Imperial Charioteers. He is therefore upon business to the Empire. The man who has halted him is a very brave man or a fool." The man who held the horses merely shook his head and spit. He forced the horses to retreat until the chariot began to turn to the right, backing in to a pot dealer's small shop. The pot merchant shouted in alarm and jumped to get out of the way, but the man with the large sword ceased pushing the horses, just short of wreaking havoc on the man's livelihood. The mercenary released the bridle and bent down to pick something up, and then sauntered aside. "You can go now." The chariot driver was about to start the horses on their way again, when the charioteer pulled the whip out of his hand. As if anticipating the move, the warrior wheeled about as the leather lash sang through the air and let it catch upon the leather bracer he wore on his left arm. Quickly grabbing the whip, he yanked hard and almost pulled the charioteer over the side of the chariot. Then, just as the man began regaining balance, the mercenary drew one of his long dirks and cut the lash. The charioteer fell backwards and almost went over the other side. As the angry charioteer started to right himself again, the mercenary struck the horse on the flank, shouting, "Yah!" with the top of his lungs. Caught unawares, the driver was barely able to pull them around and head them down the street without driving through a packed mob of merchants and shoppers. Laughter filled the boulevard, and enraged the charioteer called back curses upon the large warrior. The warrior watched the departing chariot, then entered the ale shop and came to stand beside Suli. "Ale," he said, putting down what he had picked up in the street. It was a copper coin. Boric shook his head. "You were almost run down because you stopped to pick up a copper." The man removed his metal helmet, revealing damp hair clinging to his head, where he had hair, for the man was at least in his 40s or 50s and had lost most of the hair on top. "You can't take a chance at waiting, friend," he said slowly, his accent giving him a full mouth sound as he spoke, as if he was speaking around cotton wadded in his cheeks. "That's 5 Juni. That's more money than I've seen in a month." Something in his accent sounded familiar upon Boric's ear, and he said, "Oh, this guy's not from here, so... Are you from the Isles?" The man shook his head. "Langost, a town in the foothills of the Peaks of Tranquility. Our peoples were from Islestock, though. My grandfather's from the deep Taunton. I take it you're from the Isles." Boric shrugged as if it didn't really matter. "Most recently from Durban," he said. "But before that, I was in the Isles." "Farafra is in paradise, but it's a better place than the pest hole Durban." The man stuck out his hand. "Gora Bule, caravan guard. Late of Hansula. And before that, Gwalin. And before that, Islana." Boric shook the man's hand, heavily calloused from years of handling both sword and livestock. "My friends call me Madman," he said with a grin. "This is Suli." Suli solemnly shook hands with the fighter, as if one among equals. "Madman. Must be a story about that name. Or didn't your father like you?" Boric laughed. "No, I did some crazy things once and the name stuck." Boric shook his head. "Caravan guard. That would explain why you knew how to move those chariot horses." The man smiled, little more than curling his lips slightly, but his blue eyes danced. "Charioteers and their drivers give me gas. And one thing I do know about horses is that when someone is pushing on their faces, they don't like it and will back up. You can try that with a fool wiggling their reins and try flicking a whip behind their ear. But I wouldn't try it with a rider on their back, with a strong leg and a pair of spurs." He chuckled. "Pretty stupid, wasn't it?" Boric laughed. "Yes, it was." Gurabule drained the last of the ale from his cup and said, "Well, best be off to the caravansary. My most recent woman threw me out of her crib this morning when she finally figured out I wasn't going to marry her and get a job in the city after all. So I'm without funds, and that means time to find work. Besides, I've about had my fill of farafra and could do with a change of scenery. Good day to you both." Boric hesitated for an instant and said, "Let me buy you one." Guru put the helm he had just retrieved back on the bar. "You talked me into it, madman." Boric ordered another round. When the barkeep had put the drinks down, Boric turned to the mercenary and said, "I need to get to the city of Kesh, Gura." Gura turned about as if looking to see where he was. "But first, walk that way," he said, pointing down the street, "until you reach the southern tip of the Spires of Light. It's a large mountain range. You'll notice them right away. Then turn left to bend around them. Then right at the River San runs to the northern tip of the Guardians. Follow the river to a place where the Auvergne Deep, where a lot of people live. And that's the city of Kesh. Can't miss it. If you start now, you should be there in 6 or 8 weeks. Thanks, said Boric dryly. I mean, I need to get there and I'd like to hire on a caravan heading that way. Uh-huh, said Gura, non-committally nodding. And if it would help, if I had someone known around here to vouch for me. Uh-huh, said Gura. So you'd like me to take you along for a caravansary and tell some unsuspected caravan master you're my old friend from home. A truly cracking good swordsman who, by the way, is called the Madman. Boric closed his eyes as if he had a headache. Not quite. Look, friend, I thank you for the drink, but that does not entitle you to risk my good name. Hang on. Looks like we're having internet issues. Nope, never mind, came right back up. Hannah, hello, good evening. Tyler, hello, welcome in. Tyson, hello, good to see you, brother. Alright, everyone, I'm going to call it a night. I made it to my sister's. Glad you made it safe. Rest well. That's alright, we just had a little bit of internet issues ourselves. This is so comforting. I was not expecting this tonight. Hello, friend. Hello, Tyler. Welcome. Yeah, we normally are on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but we had a unexpected commitment yesterday that kept me from being able to be on, so we're making up for it tonight. Risk my good name by making recommendations that are bound to reflect badly on me in time. Boric said. Wait a minute. Who said it would reflect badly on you? I'm a competent swordsman. Without a sword? Boric shrugged. That's a long story. It always is. Gura picked up his helm and put it crookedly upon his head. Sorry. I'll pay you. Gura took his helmet off and put it back on the bar. He signaled the barman for another round. Well then, let's cut to the heart of it. Reputations have a certain value, don't they? What do you suggest? What will you earn on a trip from here to Kesh? Gura considered. It's a pretty uneventful route. Well patrolled by the army and there's little pay. Which is why are always caravans needing guards. A large caravan, perhaps 10 eku, a smaller one 5, and food for the trip, of course. Maybe a bonus if there are bandits along the way we have to fight. Boric did a quick calculation in his head. He could only think in terms of kingdom coins, and reviewed the money he had in his purse from Salea and his poker winnings from the ship. I'll tell you what. Get the 3 of us hired on to guard a caravan, and I'll double whatever is paid you. Let me get this right. We get you on the caravan to Kesh. You give me your wages when we get there. No, he said, drinking down his ale. What guarantee do I have that you'll not skip out with the money before I can collect? Boric gave him an exasperated look. You doubt my word? Doubt your word, sonny. We've just met. And what would you think if you were me, and this is being proposed to you by someone who is called Madman? He looked significantly down at his empty cup. Boric signaled for another round. All right, I'll pay you half on account before we leave, and the rest when we get there. Gura still wasn't convinced. And what about the boy? No one will consider him a likely guard. Boric turned to look at Suli, who was now clearly wobbling from the influence of 3 ales. He can pass work. We'll hire him on as a caravan to the caravan as a cook's monkey. Sully just nodded, bleary-eyed. Cook. But can you handle a blade, madman? Said Gouda seriously. Boric said matter-of-factly. Better than any man I've met. Gouda's eyes widened. That's a must. Boric grinned. Still alive, aren't I? Gouda stared at Boric for a moment, then threw back his head and laughed. And that's good. Killing what was left of his ale, Gouda pulled out his 2 long dirks and reversed one in his left hand, handing it to Boric. Show me what you've got, madman. Suddenly Boric was twisting and parrying a vicious lunge, barely able to avoid the potentially killing stroke. He didn't hesitate as he struck the mercenary as hard as a blow to the head as he could with his left hand. As Gouda shook his head to clear it, Boric lunged, and the mercenary was falling away from the point, striking the table with his back. The barman shouted, Hey, here, you two! Stop breaking up my shop! Gouda sidled along the table as Boric measured him. We can stop any time you're convinced, said the prince, balancing his weight on the balls of his feet, shoulders hunched, and the point of the dirk aimed at Gouda. The mercenary grinned, his manner playful. I'm convinced. Boric flipped the dirk, catching the blade between thumb and forefinger, and handed it back to Gouda. The mercenary looked at it and said, Well, we'd better find a weapons dealer and get you set up. You may know how to handle a weapon, but it does you little good if you don't have one. Boric put his hand down the front of his baggy tunic, pulled out his purse, took out a pair of copper coins, handed them to the furious barkeep. Sully, let's be off. He discovered the boy was slumped down at the foot of the bar, snoring loudly. Gouda shook his head. Can't say I trust anyone who can't hold his drink. Boric laughed as he pulled the drunken boy to his feet, shaking him severely. He said, Sully, we have to go. Through bleary eyes, the boy said, Master, why is the room spinning? Gouda grabbed his helm and said, I'll wait for you outside, madman. You tend the boy. The mercenary exited the shop and stood next door, examining some copper jewelry while the sounds of the boy being very sick emerged from the ale shop. 3 hours later, 2 men and a very pale boy passed through the eastern city gate and entered the caravanserai. The large field, surrounded on 3 sides by tents and sheds, was located just to the east of the city, less than a quarter mile from the gates of Farafra. Close to the 300 wagons of varying sizes were spread around the meadow. Dust filled the air as horses, oxen, and camels moved from one place to another. Sully hefted a large sack he carried, full of various items Gouda insisted they buy. Boric had followed the mercenaries' lead in the matter, save when it came to his own armor. Boric now wore an old but serviceable jacket of leather, with leggings and bracers. He couldn't find a light helm, so rather than one he didn't care for, he chose a leather band with a cloth head cover. To keep his lengthening hair black, and perspiration out of his eyes. The covering also protected the back of his neck from the harsh Keshian sun. A long sword hung from his left hip, and a dirk from his right. He'd have preferred a rapier, but they were rarer in Farafra than in Krondor and beyond his means. The day's shopping had eaten away at his meager supply of coins, and he was aware that he was still a long way from the city of Kesh. As they moved along the corrals where the horses were kept, they came to the main concourse, a series of wagons arrayed in 2 lines. Strolling along between them were a full score of armed men, as well as merchants seeking transport for their goods. Moving down the concourse, the 3 were called to by a man atop each wagon. Bound for Kimri. I need guards for Kimri. At the next man he shouted, to them, Goda, I need guards for Telemon. The third called, Top price paid, leaving tomorrow for Hansul. Halfway down the concourse, they found a caravan bound for the city of Kesh. The caravan master looked them over and said, I know you by name, Gurabule. I can use you and your friend, but I don't want the boy. Borik was about to speak, but Gura cut him off. I don't go anywhere without my good luck cook. The stout caravan master looked down upon Suli, perspiration beading on his hairless head as he said, Good luck cook. Gura nodded, as if it was something so obvious he didn't comment upon. Yes. What, O master of 10,000 lice, is a good luck cook? When I was guard on Temus Raiden's caravan from Querel to Ashunta 7 years back, were raided by bandits, struck as if by lightning, had no time to even get out of a prayer to the death goddess. He made a sign of good luck, as did the caravan master. But I survived, as did my good luck cook. Not another man did. I always had my good luck cook with me since. As that boy can be no more than 12 summers, father of provocateurs. He must have been precocious indeed to have been a caravan cook 7 years ago. Oh, it wasn't him, said Guru, shaking his head as if that should be obvious. Different cook. You see, I was down the gully, with my breeches around my ankles, with the worst case of the runs in my life, when the bandits struck. Couldn't even get up. They just never found me. And how did the cook survive? He was squatting just a few feet away. And what happened to him? The caravan master squinting down at Guru with interest. I killed the bastard for almost poisoning me. The caravan master couldn't help but laugh. When he was through, Guru said, The boy will cause no trouble. He can help the cook around the campfire at night, and you needn't pay him. Just let him eat a full meal every day until we reach Kesh. Done, said the master, spitting in his hand and extending it. Guru spit in his hand and they shook. I can always use a good liar around the fire at night. Makes the journey pass quickly. To Suli he said, Go find my cook, boy. He hiked his finger over his shoulder where the cook wagon could be seen amidst a dozen freight wagons. Tell him you're to be his new cook's monkey. Suli looked to Borik, who nodded he should go. As Suli left, the caravan master said, I'm Yano Saver, trader from Kesh. We'll leave at first light tomorrow. Gura unslung a small bundle he carried over his shoulder. We'll sleep under your wagons tonight. Good. Now leave me, as I need 4 more guards before nightfall. Borik and Guru wandered from the spot and found some shade under a widely spreading tree. Guru took his helm off and ran his fingers over his sweaty face. Might as well rest now, madman. Tomorrow it gets really miserable. Miserable? Asked Borik. Yes, madman. Tomorrow we're merely hot and bored. Today we're merely hot and bored. Tomorrow we will be thirsty, dirty, tired, hot and bored. Borik crossed his arms on his chest and tried to rest. He knew that it had been drilled into him since his boyhood that a soldier steals rest whenever the opportunity appears. But his mind raced. How was Erlon faring? And what was transpiring in Kesh? By his estimate, Erlon and the others should be in Kesh by now. Was Erlon safe? Did they count Borik dead or merely missing? Sighing aloud, he settled down. Soon he was dozing in the afternoon heat, and the noise of the busy caravanserai becoming a lulling in its own fashion. And so ends Chapter 10 of Prince of the Blood. It's been a while. I've been working. Work is good. We don't ever complain about work. Freya Nordsdottir, hello, welcome in. This is so neat. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. You're coming in at the end, but I'm glad that you dropped in. You're enjoying yourself. First thing that came to my mind was Prince of Nothing. Hello, what book is we reading today? Prince of the Bud by Raymond Fives. Let me look at it. A 1989 book. Yes. Yes, quite old. But is the work productive? Well, all we can really hope for is work. Whether or not it's productive is entirely up to us and whoever we're doing the work for, I suppose. And a finder in we could not have asked for. No, everybody is sort of in a good place for the moment. Vonnie Burns, you're the best. Oh, I don't know about the best. Maybe in the top 10. But thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. Well, my edits are developmentally better, but descriptively more unclear. Now I have to merge the old with the new. Well, there you go. Thank you for the story, Castle. Of course, Frost, always my pleasure. I always hope the work I'm doing is productive, even if it feels like busy work. It is a hard line to draw, especially when you're not doing work for yourself. Oh, and Vonnie, thank you for the stars. I didn't even see those come in. Thank you kindly for the tips to the Tavern Keeper. Deeply appreciated. Tips to the Tavern Keeper, always appreciated. Very glad to have you. You're awesome. Oh, you're too kind. There. I appreciate the compliment, though. I'm glad you enjoy the stories. I actually saw you followed very recently, and you became a supporter. Thank you kindly for that. Again, tips to the Tavern Keeper, always appreciated. How is the lady and the child? The lady is sitting right across from me. She's been feeling a bit under the weather, but she's all right. And the boy is in his room with his friends, I believe. Not with his friends, but talking to his friends. Susan, thank you kindly for the heart me. Tips to the Tavern Keeper are, of course, always appreciated. Thank you very much. Well, Freya, since you're in here and you did just become a supporter, if you are supported on anything, at any time, you get extra stories every month. We have a bunch that are going to be coming out over the next couple of days, because we're a bit behind on our work, but there'll be a bunch of stories coming out for supporters and for everybody else. So, look forward to that. I think we can get away with one song. I have a bunch of work I need to go get done, but I think we can get away with one song. My darling, what one song ought we do for the end of today's story time?
Let me see what it's called. The one with the doctor sequence, but it's from the topic.
What, The Edge of Night?
No, it's from Lord of the Rings. The one saying his last goodbye.
Oh, Last Goodbye. Yeah, we can do Last Goodbye. Why not? I'm going to take this chance to step away. Be safe and well, Tower family. I will see you all on Sunday. Good night, Frost. Rest well. Let's see if we can get through the song before we have to run ads again. I think that let's see if we can do that. So the lady says we should do Last Goodbye by Billy Boyd. Totally enjoyed listening to you. Thank you. Well, Sarah, I'm very glad you enjoyed being in. I do enjoy getting to open the tavern doors for you all so you can come in and we can talk and I can read you stories. It is the highlight of my week to do so. You give great advice. Listen all every day. Your Celtic friend. Well, Vonnie, I appreciate that. I can't take any credit for the wisdom or advice as I just pass on what was given to me. But I'm glad you find value in it. Our ancestors will know that they have not wasted their efforts in making sure that it got to us. Sure, yeah, we'll do Wellerman and then we'll do Last Goodbye, and those will be our two songs for the night. So we'll do Wellerman and then Last Goodbye by Billy Boyd. Those will be our two songs for the night. I don't know if I can intone Last Goodbye. Huh? Yeah, because he's got a very high voice and I don't. So let's see if we can get through these songs. I'm gonna jump right into them so we can get through. All right, if you know the words, if you've never been in the tavern before, we sing usually in between stories or at the end. If you know the words, you sing along. We do not sing well, we just sing to have fun. So, join us for Wellerman. There once was a ship that put to sea, and the name of that ship was the Billy O.T. Though winds blew up her bow, dip down, oh blow, my bully boys, blow. Ha! Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. She'd not been 2 weeks from shore when down on her a right whale bore. The captain called all hands and swore he'd take that whale in tow. Ha! Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Da 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 da. Before the boat had hit the water, the whale's tail came up and caught her. All hands to the side, harpooned and fought her when she dived down below. Ah! Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. No line was cut, no whale was freed. The captain's mind was not of greed, but he belonged to the whaleman's creed. She took that ship in tow. Ha! Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. For 40 days or even more, the line went slack, then tight once more. Our boats were lost, there were only 4, but still that whale did go. Ha! Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. As far as I've heard, the fight's still on, the line's not cut and the whale's not gone. The wellerman makes his irregular call to encourage the captain, crew and all. Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Soon may the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Thank you for the song, my friends. Absolutely excellent. All right, how we doing? All right, we've got exactly 5 minutes to get through. Huh? Okay. Let's see if we can get through Edge of Night before it's all done. She says bravo and claps. I'm sure she did a spectacular job. All right, let's see. Okay, so the only version of this that I can find is the really short version. So we'll just do the really short version, and then if there's a longer one, we'll do it next time. It was beautiful, Castle. Well, thank you, Hannah. I appreciate you. Home is behind, the world ahead. And there are many paths to tread through shadow to the edge of night until the stars are all alight. mist and shadow, clouds and shade, all shall fade, all shall fade. And that's the only version of that song I know. So, she also asked me to thank you for singing for her. It's my pleasure, Kenzie. I hope that you're doing well in school, behaving for your parents, and I'm glad you enjoyed the song. Alrighty, friends, that is all I have for you for this evening. And while it is such sweet sorrow that we must part, we will gather again the next time that you all seek a story. If you're over on the Twitch portal, we're going to seek to share the love by sending our tavern folk into somebody else's domain. But if you are joining us through any of the other portals, know that the lady and I thank you deeply and dearly for the time you spend with us here in the tavern. We're glad that we get to bring you stories every day, and we are glad more than anything that you enjoy them. It is a pleasure and a privilege to serve as your storytellers, my friends. And we will see you the very next time that we all gather here in the tavern. So until then, I will bid you all stay bloodthirsty, my friends, and we will see you next time. Have a good night. Rest well, my friends.